Hi, I'm Grant from Blackmagic Design, and today I wanted to update you on some new products. Now, these products are high-end products that are a bit more sophisticated than normal, and so they've got some pretty powerful features, and so I wanted to do a bit of a video to explain some of those features and really get a chance to show you them in detail a bit more than what we'd normally do in maybe like a press conference or on a website. So the first product I wanted to talk about is we have a new product called HyperDeck Extreme. Now, it's a whole new design, but what it does is it really addresses three important issues that we wanted to solve with HyperDeck. We wanted a new generation of technology. We wanted to also deal with an archiving issue. There's really a big problem with the cost of getting archive content in. We think one of the biggest issues with streaming platforms is that people in different countries don't get enough chance to get their own local content, the history of their local content into the modern streaming platforms. So we really wanted to design a HyperDeck that would solve that problem. We have HyperDecks obviously with analog in, but they don't really take control of the deck. So we wanted to solve that problem and allow the archive content to really be imported easily. The other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to change the design of the product. We wanted to make it a bit more like a traditional broadcast deck, but it's also modern at the same time. So I think what's worth doing before I really get into showing you the product in detail is to really talk about the history of broadcast decks, and I think that'll help you understand what I'm really talking about. Now what we've done is over the side here, we've got a range of broadcast decks that I'd like to show you. So if you just come across the side here, now we've got some different models. In fact, we've got a whole bunch of decks here. Some of this one's actually one I tried to run cables to when I first started out in television, and that was unsuccessful because they were parallel cables. So what we're really showing here is different generations of broadcast deck. And so to give you a bit of a history lesson, if you haven't seen this, and you can understand, this will help you understand what I'm really talking about with the HyperDeck itself. This is a BVH 2000, this is a 1-inch machine. Now this was introduced in about 1980. What was really innovative about this machine at the time is that we could fit in a rack. Now most people probably saw these in consoles, but the reality is it was an extremely small machine. Up until this moment, the machines had been massive, and this was in a complete one rack unit. It was quite extraordinary, and there's a lot of archive content on 1-inch. The other thing that was really interesting about this machine is it introduced the RS422 deck control standard. So this is almost the oldest variation. I think the BVU800 was also introduced at roughly the same time. So that was a significant technical achievement and a real milestone in technology. Then you come along a little bit to the DVR1000. Now this is an extraordinary machine. This came along in about 1986. I think this would probably be worth over $300,000 now if you had it in today's money. I think this was probably $500,000 or something in today's money. Extremely sophisticated machine. What was really interesting, it was the first component digital recording. And if you think back at the time, this machine came out at roughly the same time the original Macintosh was state of the art. It was component digital, so what was interesting about this is there was almost nothing to plug it into. I remember this machine, this machine was in the first post house I worked in, and it used to sit in the corner most of the time, idle, because there was nothing really, there was no work being done on it. It was really, in many ways, it was way beyond the technology of the time. And I think it's extraordinary that they built that. It's worth, I'll show you the tape. This is a tape that went in the machine here, and you can see the size of the thing. And look at that, that's the cassette. It's like massive. What's interesting about this though, I'll put the cover on the side. That's the cassette there, it goes up in the front. Now what's amazing about that tape is I think we calculated that's about almost half a terabyte in size for basically the mid-80s. It's 23,000 times the size of a typical 20 meg hard disk, and a 20 meg hard disk was, if a computer had a hard disk in those days, 20 megabyte was about the size, and this is 23,000 times bigger than that. So I think, this machine, to me, I think the technical achievement that this machine represents is probably as significant as the Apollo guidance computer, and it really was an extraordinary technical achievement. Amazing group of engineers that would have worked on this. I mean, have a look at it. This is all the electronics. Probably shouldn't be getting too excited about this machine, but it's a historic moment, I think, in technology. It's a bit dirty in here, but if you look at these circuit boards, look at the size of this circuit board. Look at that. I mean, it's just incredible. And that's all TTL. So really quite amazing machine. What was interesting though is because it was ahead of its time, let me just get it in the card guide here. I'm gonna destroy it. Look at this. Because this is all the electronics, because it was so far ahead of its time, there wasn't a lot to plug it into, so we used it in high-end post-production for TV commercials and things like that. But what they did do, and it's because it was component digital, you can see 422 here, it's kind of like a early version of Bayer. What was interesting about this is that it didn't plug into a lot, so they actually created this machine here called D2. Now this came along in about 1988, and what it was like a digital composite machine. It was derived from the technology they developed here, but it really was designed to replace 1-inch machines. What was interesting about these is up until these came out, even TV commercials were still transmitted off 2-inch machines because they could turn 2-inch machines into cassettes. The C format here didn't really lend itself to cassettes, so the robotic machines for playing back TV commercials were still using a really outdated technology. So these kind of solved two problems. It was a digital version of 1-inch. It was composite, so it wheeled straight into systems that people already had at the time. A lot of programming was on them, but also it could be used for TV commercial playback as well. Then we had Betacam SP. Now we don't have any Betacam SP machines here, which came along in about 1986. And that was analog component. So it was analog, but it was component. There's a lot of programming on those. And then of course we got digital Betacam. And that was a major technology achievement because it played back SP tapes, but it was digital. And also the control panel was quite simple. So I think that was, and also the other thing for us, of course, because we were doing capture cards in the early days, it was 10-bit. So that was quite a good quality format. It was incredible for for broadcast graphics. And so you can see there's really different generations here, but I think what's important is that there's three essentially different technical generations here. So we're really talking about a design aesthetic. You can notice one of the things that's worth noticing about all these, and we have a Panasonic machine down here, there's actually a very similar design aesthetic. They've all got a similar types of transport controls, even across brands. So there's actually a legacy of sort of broadcast deck design amongst all these machines. But also each machine represented a generation of technology. You know, you had different eras of technology stepping through. And I thought that was interesting. And the other issue that is where the programming is. If we're going to deal with archiving, what you've got is you've got a lot of programming on 1-inch machines, a lot of programming on D2, a lot of programming on digital Betacam, and obviously Betacam SP. Not so much on this. These were really, I think, so expensive and so technically advanced at the time. Mostly they were used for TV commercials. I don't think a lot of people want to get an archive of old TV commercials and get them onto the streaming services. You know, it's programming that people are really interested in, obviously films. So there really is really three different issues here. There's a design aesthetic, there's a generations of technology, and then there's also broadcast design. And we thought that we could address all those three. That those were the really significantly interesting things that we wanted to address in a new model of HyperDeck. And that's what we really focused on with HyperDeck Extreme. So if we come across, and I'll show you the HyperDeck now, we have a slide that we can put up. But also here's the HyperDeck here. Now you can see that it's actually a compact half rack width, 3 rack unit design. You've got, you can see on the front, I'll actually plug them in so you can get them, we can get them fired up and you can see what's going on. Now you can see that the front is basically, it's an LCD control. So you've got a really large LCD on the front of the unit. So that's all your control, but there is some dedicated buttons there. There's dual C fast cards you can see. We've also got a speaker at the top and there's a headphone jack on the bottom. One of the most commonly asked for features is actually a headphone jack so people can confirm their audio before they start recording a master. It's also a portable design. You notice I just lifted it up. The unit can be mounted by itself. Now you can mount them just the HyperDecks. This has actually got rubber feet on it on a desktop, but it's also got the rack kit on it as well. So I've kind of got both. Now the unit itself, you can mount 2 HyperDecks and Brady bunch them if you want to stack them, or you could put them with a controller like I've got here and have them side by side. So I think if I can play some video, is that playing? There it is there. So I think that if you look at this, the front of the screen here and you get a close-up of the screen, you can see that you've got all the transport controls down the bottom. There's also, it might have gone away because I played, there's also a scrub and jog slider, so you can scrub and jog. There's a VU and PPM meters. We can actually change between VU and PPM. Also, got the correct ballistics on those meters as well. There's built-in scopes, and you can control the scopes from the front. There's obviously a nice big timecode display, and you can change that to timer by tapping it. The video standards display, the media status is displayed. There's also focus and exposure tools you can turn on in the menus. There's obviously menus. Similar menu structure to the cameras, so you can move backwards and forwards on those, and they're very similar in usage. There's also 3D LUTs, 33-point 3D LUTs. So what I might do is, it's a bit hard to use it in this configuration, but if I go over to the rack over here, I can show you one and we can have a play. So if you follow me over, and I'll take the cover off. So here's a HyperDeck here. So what I can do is I can show you the playback. So you just push playback and there it is, and you can play. I've got a monitor hooked up to the monitoring output, so you can see there's some overlays there. I can stop. Now I can also do scrub and jog. So if I scroll up and down here, you can see I've got the shuttle and jog. And also you can actually swipe to jog. So if you want to go a bit faster, you can move through. So you can go slowly or fast depending. So you can kind of jog by touching the screen or shuttle up and down. You can see small gaps in between the clips. The other thing is if I touch the button over here, you can see it brings up the menu settings. So you can change quite a lot of different settings in here. So it's all available on the front screen there. Now what's interesting about this is that it's obviously a touchscreen interface, so it's really quite modern. But this is where we've built the controller. So it's kind of interesting. You kind of got a modern touchscreen design one way, but then you add the controller, the HyperDeck Extreme controller, and now you're putting all these traditional broadcast controls, which is the aesthetic I talked about with those broadcast decks. I felt like in many ways we lost that, that capability. When we did the original HyperDeck studio models, we wanted them to be one rack unit, so we made them so small, there wasn't a lot of space for a lot of front controls. But we thought, well, because we've got a nice big screen on the front, I think it'd be nice to have an optional controller, so we can kind of have a really modern touchscreen interface one way and then swing it back and actually have really traditional controls added. But if you choose, I mean, you can just have these units, the HyperDecks itself, or you can add the controllers for a full set like this and kind of make a traditional broadcast deck. So it's really quite, it's really up to you what you do. I think it's kind of nice that we kind of get the best of both worlds, so like a modern interface and a traditional interface at the same time, which is really good. There's almost no compromises there. So if you look at the controller on the front of it, you can see that you can control up to 8 decks. There's great transport controls. There's a beautiful jog control here. It's wonderful. And also we've got buttons that have been designed by us. We actually had to recreate the buttons to get them exactly right. On the back panel, there's RS422, so you can do deck control with basically all the common decks. It's nothing really proprietary, it's just standard RS422. So you can pretty much plug that into everything. And what it means though is it's perfect for archiving, because this controller will talk to any broadcast deck with RS422, and it'll do edit functions as well. So you can edit between a broadcast deck and a HyperDeck, and that's how you can then go and just put in and out points in on a master and set it going, and you can go off to another older deck and do another archiving job at the same time. So for example, you could put one of these sets under every old traditional deck you've got, and you could just start churning the data, the content in, and you don't have to sit there watching it. You can put an in and out point and just do the edit. It'll take care of the entire capture and then stop when it's finished. So it means you can have a lot of different archiving going on at the same time. Also, it's obviously got the edit function, so you can put in and out points. It works in a very traditional way. But the other thing that's really nice about it is you can actually edit across frame rates. So one of the things that people do, like you might have an NTSC master with 3.2 pull down in 4:3, where you want to be able to convert that through a Teranex, get it up to HD, get rid of the pull down, get it back to 24 frames a second, and then maybe get it to 16:9, so you get rid of the 4:3. Now you can do that because this will allow the broadcast deck to be, at 5997 interlaced NTSC. It'll be allow the HyperDeck to be 24 frames in HD, so it doesn't mind. It'll allow you to edit across frame rates. So what I'll do is I'll actually show you some editing functions now. So let's come across and we'll have a bit of a play with it, and I can show you how it works. So here we are here. Now I've got it set up so that the recorder is the HyperDeck here. So when I play, you can see that all the transport controls work as normal. Fast forward, rewind. Also here's the jog. Here's the search dial. So I can run the search dial, shuttle backwards and forwards. It's got a clutch in it, so you can see it actually stops at the point that you're doing. It's got a little center detent there, so you can tell where the center is. When you hit jog though, it free spins. And we've got some wonderful bearings and everything in here, and there's a little bit of mass in there, so you can spin it and get a bit of an analog feel when you're jogging. And also we've got a position control. Position's really nice when you've got a really long clip in there or really long recording. You can basically move backwards and forwards and set the exact position where you'd like to be in the timeline just by moving backwards and forwards. All the old decks had vary speed, but you don't need that because we're not doing dynamic tracking which is what these machines used to do. So we've changed that to position. But it's really very nice. Now what you can do is, what it's worth doing is showing you on this 1-inch machine actually doing an edit. So let's fire this machine up. It actually does still run perfectly fine. And I've got a tape on it, which is just a boring tape of some fish. So that's come online now. So we can, well actually what I'll do is I'll put it in remote and I'll go to the to the player over here, and then we can hit play. And you'll see that we've got on the back of the unit, we've got the RS422 connected from here to the machine here. So when we do different features, we can shuttle. We can go back the other way. You can see we've got full control over it. We can shuttle down the tape a little. We can stop and play. And also we can jog, so we can find the position we want. So what we'll do is we'll go and change the input to composite, because composite is what's coming out of the 1-inch machine, and we've got the analog inputs on the HyperDeck. So we've just selected that. Now we'll go into the player and we'll put let's play. So let's put an in point in. So you just go in entry to put an in point. We'll play it on along a little bit. In fact, I'll jog along a little bit. And let's put an out point in. Now we're on the player, so we can even hit pre-roll, and it'll actually pre-roll the machine. We can go back to the recorder and then select input, and we can see our composite input coming into the machine here. Now, all we need to do is push edit. And it'll now edit onto the HyperDeck, and you'll see it go into record at the in and out points defined. There it is there. And it's done. So that's all you need to do. Now what's really exciting about this is that if we wanted to, now we're recording 4x3 at, this is a PAL machine, so we're basically recording 4x3 PAL. But if you wanted to, you could upconvert that using a Teranex. So we've got up the top here in the top of the rack a Teranex converter. Let's have a look at the out here. Well, that's Ultra HD. Let's just change it to 1080 and progressive and 24 frames. So we'll set that. And I've actually got the Teranex, because we've kind of pre-wired all the equipment up here to show you. What I'll do is I'm using the SDI inputs from another bit of gear. So I've got the Teranex here connected into the HDMI input. So what I'll do is I'll go into the inputs here. I'll change to the HDMI input. And now you can see we've got the output of the Teranex. So what it's done is it's converted it from PAL 25 frames a second. It's made it 16:9. It's converted the frame rate to 24 frames a second, and it's gone to 1080 HD. So we can show you how you can edit across that. So I'll go back to the player and I'll put myself another in point in. I'll shuttle down a little bit, put an out point in, and then I'll go back to the recorder, and we've got all that ready to go. So I can do another edit here, and then you can see the machine will wind back. It's being converted through the Teranex. It's going into the HDMI input of the HyperDeck, and it'll do that recording without even really caring that the frame rates are different between what it's recording and what it's playing back. There you go, it's doing it now, and you can see that it's 1080 24p there, and there's our nice little quick recording. So you can see it's all pretty nice. I think it's going to be a wonderful way to get all these old masters. You just have to put an in and out point, put a HyperDeck on every old machine, and just start churning all that old content through. So I think the archiving point is really important, and I think there's so much really old legacy programming out there. It'd be really nice to see it on the modern streaming platforms. But the really nice technical thing, I'll shut this machine down so it doesn't make a whole lot of noise for us. In fact, I'll turn it off. Probably should unspool the tape before I turn it off. All the older guys will be yelling, saying you get the tape off there before you shut the machine off. So really, but the technology change we're talking about here is an 8K. This is an 8K recorder. So I think it's worth showing it, recording and playing back in 8K. Now the way we're doing 8K, and I'll explain that. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll unplug this HyperDeck and I'll turn it around so you can see the back panel, because that actually helps. You can see the rear of the unit itself. Now, what we're doing is we're doing 8K recording through quad-link 12G SDI. And you can see along the back there, there's the 12 links. You can actually see the cable we're using from the controller to the HyperDeck. You can see that we're actually using the 422 to between the controller and the HyperDeck ourselves. But down there, you can see on the back of the HyperDeck, there's a quad-link 12G SDI in and out. Now, what that lets us do is, because 8K is 4 times the resolution, and we want to be running high frame rate 8K, we want to do 60 frames, up to 60 frames a second. So we're using the quad link for that, and you can see it on the back chassis there. We're also using H.265. Now, the great thing about using H.265 is the data rates are extremely low. I mean, really low. So, yeah, we're getting like an hour or more off a CFast card from recording, and its picture quality is fantastic. Now, you know, the good thing is that, I mean, 8K is still very new. But there is a lot, televisions and projectors coming along now that are supporting it. They're broadcasting 8K in Japan, so I think it's an exciting technology, and really that's the big technology leap that we've done here. You've seen the technology changes here. In some ways, the HyperDeck Extreme is that big technology change, and 8K and H.265 and a few other things we've done are part of that big technology shift. So let's do an 8K recording. So we'll go over in the rack here and we can do an 8K recording and playback so I can show you how all that works. So if you look at the HyperDeck over here, it's funny actually, it says it could do 25 hours on this card based on 1080 progressive 24 frames, which is a lot of media to lose if you drop the card in the washing machine. So what I'll do is I'll change across to the SDI inputs, and on the SDI inputs we have a 8K source coming in here, wide in. So you can see it's coming in, it's actually got multiple channels of audio, and now the duration has changed down to be able to get 2 hours onto this card in H.265. So let's just do a recording. So I'll use the front panel here. There you go. So now we're doing a recording, and now it's recording in 8K in H.265, and it just works like any other format. It's also worth noting this is a single file. It's not putting down tiles or anything like that. It's just a single 8K full resolution media file. So it's very normal. There's no weird software tricks or anything. Any of the software applications need to do to be able to read the file. It just works as normal. And there you go. Now I can hit play, and it'll play back, and there it is. And that's the recording we just did. You can see I can change the time code to timer or time code. I can also shuttle up and down. It's just a shot here of a lady speaking, but you can see it's all very, very normal. There's nothing really different about it apart from the fact that it's 8K. I'll keep going through some more of the features. I'll turn this HyperDeck back around again so you can see it. There it is. So you can see that just to go through some of the feature set that we've got in it, you can see there's dual media recorders. So you can keep recording. So if I had kept that recording going, you can just keep putting another card in. Because once a card fills up, it'll just swap to a next free card, and you can just keep swapping them out. CFast cards are really robust and nice and small, so they're really great. Now we've calculated that in 8K, you can get about 490 minutes or so on a 1 terabyte card in 8K at 60 frames a second. But you can get about 1,000 minutes, over 1,000 minutes in Ultra HD at 60 frames a second on a single 1 terabyte card, or about 2,300 minutes or so at 1080p 5994 on 1 terabyte card. I mean, you can see there was a long duration there. I think what's exciting is, you can get on a big card, you can get over 8 hours of 8K, and over like almost 40 hours of HD, depending on what you're doing. So it's pretty exciting, the amount of duration you get, and really how efficient the recording is when you're using H.265. Now the other thing is, feature we've got is you can plug in an external disk, and I'll swap it around at the back again to show you, switching it around a bit here. But you can see on the bottom there, there's an external disk, USB-C connection. Now you can plug a flash drive into the back of that, and you can record straight to a flash disk. You get very long capacity, like very large capacity, long duration recordings. But the other thing that's really nice about recording an external flash disk, and we have that with a pocket camera, is you're recording the disk that you can use for editing off. So you can record all your media to that one flash drive and then take that away and use it on the on your editing system. So it is very nice if you're going to record into that. And the other thing is we actually have access to that external disk from the front user interface. So if you look over here, you can see you can push the media management page, and you can see that's the third external disk there. So you have access to it, and you can even select multiple disks if you have a chassis that's got more than one disk in it. Now the other thing we've got built into the product, and it's underneath, so it's probably a bit hard to show you, but we have a user installed cache. What we've done is, the PCI Express memory cards that laptops have these days, they're basically PCIe flash memory. You can put one of those into the bottom of the unit. I'll bring it up on its side here so you can see that's installed here. So you can take this plate off, and you can install that card yourself. And then what that lets you do is it gives you extra robustness. So it essentially protects you from dropping frames. Really good examples, if you're doing 8K, we did 8K on a mechanical hard disk. Sorry to run around here and keep up with the cameras, but we recorded 8K on a mechanical hard disk, but the cache took the data in real time and then dumped it down to the hard disk as fast as the hard disk could take the data. So what it really lets you do is protects you from drop frames. And that's what you really want from a HyperDeck. But the great thing about a HyperDeck is that when you hit record, you want it to record. Having the cache in there really gives you a lot of protection, because if anything weird happens with a media card you've got, and you can't always test those media cards before you start working, it'll make sure that if the media card can't keep up for any reason, the cache will take the data until the media card can catch up, which could be, if you stop recording, it could still be dumping down to the card. It'll allow you to do that, to make sure that the recording is the priority. Also, the other thing is, if a card fills up and you forget to put in a blank card, the cache will just keep recording to the cache, and then when you put a card in, it'll then dump down. So it's really pretty nice. And I think what we could probably do here is show you a quick example of recording onto a card. So I've got a mechanical disc here. If I bring it up, I can bring it up into this device list. Here it is here. So you can see it's come up on the display, because I'm going to just select it and exit out of there. And if I'll go into my input, there it is there. There's my recording. So if I record onto the mechanical hard disk, it's now recording onto that. But you can see the cache is actually recording into the cache, because it's not keeping up. It can't do that. So if I hit stop, now what's happening, you see the record is still happening to the cache, but the card's now playing back that, and the cache will essentially count back up again as it empties out. Whoops. And it'll be dumping it down on the card. So this is actually recording the 8K now, onto this mechanical disk, as it's emptying the cache out. So what it means, I've just done an 8K recording on a mechanical laptop hard disk, and it did it, even though of course it's slow, and that's finished now. So now what I've got in here is I've got an 8K file on this mechanical hard disk. So that's really probably an extreme example. The problem I've got is with H.265 and these CFast cards, the CFast cards are so much faster than what we need for H.265. It's actually hard to show you the cache unless I record on something ridiculously slow, like a mechanical hard disk in 8K. So it's probably not something you'd ever do, but it is a good demonstration of how the cache works, and you can sort of see how simple it is. It just sort of quietly sits there and does what it needs to do. When you need it, it works. When you don't need it, you don't really even notice it's there. So I'll switch the unit around so we can have a look at the back panel, because we'll go through some of the connections we've got. So as we talked about, you've got the quad 12G SDI there for 8K, but you can also use two of those outputs for fill and key if you're doing, because you can play back 4444 files as well. You can see we've got the HDMI monitoring connections on there. There's a HDMI input as well. We've also got analog inputs for archive. Now we've got component analog as well as composite analog coming in. We've also got a whole bunch of XLR audio connections on there. Betacam SP had 4 channels of analog audio, so we've got enough channels there to capture all that. But we've also got RCA audio connections as well, so we can capture from like consumer analog devices, which, there's a lot of content on those as well. So we've really put quite a wide range of analog inputs on there. We've also got timecode connections on the back. That can be good if you want to bring in content from an old tape, and you actually want to bring the timecode off that old tape across as well. Now we've got an SDI monitoring output there as well, and you can see we've got some overlays on the monitoring output. That's really useful if you've got a monitor above the deck like we have here, and you can get all the status information. We talked about the external disk USB-C connection on there, of course. Also, another thing is we've got 10G Ethernet. It's extremely fast Ethernet, and I'll get onto that in a minute, but very, very quick Ethernet. And of course the RS422 control connection, which you can see we've got wired into the controller so we can control it. And so it's very standard deck control. It works with pretty much everything, all kinds of broadcast automation systems, whatever you really need. And we've got 2 power connections as well. We've got an AC power connection. We've also got a 4-pin DC power connection, which is the broadcast standard. So you can run it off battery packs or have an alternative power source. Now we also support HDR. Now it's got a nice bright LCD on the front. We've got HDR scopes, we support HDR files, and we can detect HDR coming on the SDI HDMI inputs and then switch across to HDR recording. And also we support Rec 2020 and 709 color spaces as well. Now I just mentioned scopes. We have built-in scopes. We've got waveform, vector, parade, and histogram built in. You can set the background transparency. And there's also a nice little picture-in-picture display. If you've got a scope up, you can still see what you're actually recording or playing back. So what I'll do is, if you follow me back to the rack, I'll show you the scopes over here. Now here's the HyperDeck sitting here with an 8K input. If I click on the scopes icon here, you can see I've got different scopes. I can select waveform, parade, vector, or histogram. And if you go back to that icon, this is a little icon here, it gives me a little picture-in-picture display. So if you want to run scopes, you can also still make sure you can see your content if you need to. So there you go, and that's all built in. And they're 8K scopes basically. And I can switch back to video here. I can also do some adjustments, and you can change some of the settings of the scope. So I've got the scopes turned off, so it's not doing that right now, but if I turn it back on, I can do those adjustments there. but I'll go back to video so we can show it. So with the Quad 12G SDI, of course, we can do all the different rates up to 8K. But it means we can do SD, HD, Ultra HD, 4K, 8K, pretty much all the formats. HyperDeck, everything you throw at it, it can basically record. So it'll do NTSC and PAL. It'll do 720p up to 60 frames a second, 1080i up to 5904, 1080p up to 60. It does 1080p PSF up to 30. It does 2K DCI. It does Ultra HD up to 60p. It does 4K DCI, and obviously 8K up to 60p. It also does 3G SDI. It does both level A and level B. So I thought it might be worth mentioning just quickly some of the audio features. It will record 16 channels of audio. Obviously, it can do 4 channels of XLR analog audio in. It's got the 4-channel meters on the front. And as I mentioned, I think earlier, that you can switch the ballistics, the meters between VU and PPM. And the ballistics are correct to the standards for those. So it's a nice, accurate meter. And also, I think I mentioned there was 2 channels of HiFi audio in. As far as localization goes, we have a menu in the HyperDeck where you can set the language. When you start up, when you first power the product up for the first time, it'll actually come up with that language menu so you can set the language, sort of prompts you to do it. Then we support English, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Spanish, German, French, Russian, Italian, Portuguese, and Turkish languages. And you can switch the languages at any time because there's a menu in there to change them. Now, when you change the language, all the menus, the heads-up display, the monitoring output overlays, they all change languages. And it's particularly good. A lot of people are moving around worldwide, so it's nice to be able to change the language. So actually, I'll show you how that works. We'll come over to the HyperDeck over the front here. And if I pull up the settings menu, I can go into, actually it's already up on the page here, I can push languages. And I've got all those different languages you can see here, so I could change that to Japanese. And once I've selected that, you can see now all the menus are actually in Japanese. So you can see it's all changed over. And if I go back to the main display, you can see that all the descriptions are all in Japanese. And also the file names and stuff can be in Unicode. And you can even see the overlays here on the monitor have also become the other language. So I'll switch that back to English. There. And now we're back. So you can change that any time you like. So the other thing that's really important, and it's another big technology leap we've done with the HyperDeck, is the 10G Ethernet. A lot of these can be used for digital signage where people are using them remotely. So we've got 10G Ethernet, and that's actually faster. We're getting higher speed throughput on the 10G Ethernet than the CFast card can even handle. So it's really quite exciting. Now you can control the deck through the Ethernet using just Telnet if you want to experiment with commands, but it's quite easy to build that into your own app. And also the great thing is, if you think about it, if you're hanging USB-C storage off the device and you're uploading clips remotely and managing that playback, you kind of like almost have a broadcast server, a remote, the controlled broadcast server. So it's pretty exciting. So what I'll do is I might take a moment to show you this because this is what this video is about, being able to get a little bit deeper into some of these features. So I'll just hide the user interface here. So if you look at the interface, I've actually got on the left-hand side here, I've got Telnet connected. So if I go and type in, I can see the clip that's on the media that I've just selected here. So it's quite interesting. Like if I want to, play. If I want to play, I just type play. Now if I look at the deck over here, there it goes. Now it's playing. And if I type stop, it stops. And I can type even record. I can record on the front. Switches back and goes into record. There it is. So I'm just using Telnet to do this. Makes it really, it shows you really how easy it is to do. Now, there's a whole ton of commands here. I'll stop the recording because I don't want to keep doing that. But there's a whole bunch of commands. And if you want to see what the commands are, you can just type in help. Oops. And there they are. So you can find all the commands. Of course, it's documented as well. Now, what's really interesting about this is I can also upload via FTP. So if I go into the FTP client, I can actually log into that HyperDeck. And there you can see there's the 2 recordings we did. Now, if I drag, well, actually, let's open up this clip first and have a look. You can see it's a 5-minute clip of a couple of chefs working together in 5 minutes in duration. Now, we'll upload that just by dragging it in. There it is there. And you can see that's now uploading to the card in the HyperDeck. And in fact, it's limited by the speed of the card. And if you look, it's doing over 400 megabytes a second. The Ethernet's actually faster. That's the card in the HyperDeck limiting the speed. So now if we come back over to the HyperDeck over here and we hit play, we'll be able to play that and see the recording videos. Let's shuttle down to it actually. So there we go, down there. There they are there. That's the recording that we just uploaded. That was the shot we just uploaded there. So what I think is really quite amazing is that we've uploaded a 5-minute file in the space of about 5 to 6 seconds. So it really shows you some of the power of how fast the Ethernet is and really how small the files are. Even that's an 8K file that we uploaded, so it's not a small file at all. So this is very exciting. So this is why I think that this HyperDeck Extreme 8K model is going to be a fantastic mastering recorder for 8K live production. I think it's also a fantastic ISO recorder when you're recording a whole bunch of cameras. You can use it for clip playback, and of course we've got tape to file conversion. But digital signage, I think, is really the big thing that'll use the Ethernet speeds and the smaller file sizes. It can also be a good field recorder. And with the scopes, I think it can also do QA for programming and other uses like that. So I think it's going to be a really versatile new HyperDeck model. I think it'll be exciting. It's extremely powerful. It's a huge generation step forwards in technology for us in the HyperDeck family. So I think it'll be wonderful. So HyperDeck Extreme 8K will retail for $4,995, and the HyperDeck Extreme controller will retail for $1,295. And they should be available in early June. So another new product we have is a new multi-dock. It's called Blackmagic MultiDock 10G. Now it's an all new metal-based design like the previous model was. We've got the illuminated disc slots, and we're also repairable like the previous model was. You can get the little boards with the connectors in them if you need them to swap them out if the connector gets damaged. But the big difference is this one's a USB-C connection. And the other thing too is it's also 2 channels. There's 2 USB-C connections, and you can have all 4 slots on one connection, or you can have 2 slots on one connection and 2 slots on the other connection. So you can split it and have like almost 2 slot multi-docks in one unit. It's also got AC power, so it doesn't drain the battery of laptops if you're running it. Now, obviously, like the previous model, it works up to 4 disks. You can insert an SSD and mount that on your Mac or Windows computer. So that means, if you're getting media on SSDs back from a shoot, you can just mount them all the disks in there and edit off the whole lot at once. As you can see, we've been using this already on the HyperDeck Extreme, and it's plugged into that USB-C connection on the back of the HyperDeck. But you can also use it like as a disk array. You could put a bunch of flash drives in there and stripe them all together if you wanted to use it as a really fast disk array. It's quite a flexible design. Now, the reason we went to USB-C on the multi-dock is because it's new and it's fast. Also, one thing that's worth noting, we've got an independent driver chip, a SATA driver chip on each one of those slots. So you've got full bandwidth into each slot. So it's very, very fast. And the good thing about USB-C, it's on all the latest computers, and the drivers are built into the operating system. So if you plug this into a computer, it just works. But we also have a driver built into the HyperDeck. So what this means is when you plug that into the USB-C connection on the HyperDeck will see that. But it gives you the interchange. And the reason this is important is you've got HyperDeck Studios that are using SSDs, and the HyperDeck Extreme is using CFast cards. And you really want to be able to get some interchange between those decks if you're using all of them in a similar facility. So adding a multi-dock gives you that SSD capability. Now, I talked about the multi-channel use. Now, the reason that's important is if you had 2 HyperDeck Extremes, you can mount the multi-dock above it, and you can have 2 slots on one channel going into one HyperDeck and 2 slots on the other channel going into the other HyperDeck. So that can become quite powerful. That means you can, this, like if that was a HyperDeck, these 2 slots would be for that HyperDeck and those 2 slots would be for that HyperDeck. So what I can do is I can show you, and you can actually do, the HyperDeck understands what's in the dock, and it'll let you manage the disks. So I've got a flash drive here, and I've also got that mechanical hard disk, and the HyperDeck will see them. So if I slot those in, and I put this guy in as well, and I go into the menus here, into the media menu, which is the 3rd disk down there, you can see I've got the media here, and I can select that media just by selecting it. But I can also see a device list. I can actually see all the disks that are actually in the connected to the USB-C, and it'll show me them all. And I can then select different disks in based on what I want to do, and that's the mechanical hard disk, which is a bit slower. So I don't really want to use a mechanical hard disk, so I'll switch back. But you can see how it works. You've actually got all full media management on the HyperDeck itself. So it gives you the fantastic interchange capability between the new HyperDeck Extreme and the older Studio models, but also just using SSD. SSDs are really big, so it's a really useful thing. But really what's interesting is being able to use mechanical hard disks. They're massive and really cheap. So you can use them as a fantastic backup system. I think they're probably pretty bad for 8K, but if you're doing HD archiving, they can be a fantastic, very low cost disk. You can record straight onto those hard disks, and You get massive sizes for a very low cost. So if you're really just dealing with backup, or you want to do a lot of archive and you're not really accessing the media very much, I think there are fantastic options just to use mechanical hard disks. So the price of the new multi-dock will be the same as the old model. It's $595, and that should be available in June. So the next thing we'd like to talk about is switches. Now, we obviously need an 8K switcher to go with this fantastic HyperDeck Extreme 8K deck, so you can then do 8K live production. And we have a new switcher called ATEM Constellation 8K. Now, what we've really done with the ATEM Constellation is build a switcher that's so big that you can actually combine all the features together to make it an 8K switcher. So we really wanted something that was just, we obviously needed a really large switcher, a switcher that's way bigger than anything we've ever done before. But when we realized that if it's big enough, you can actually basically combine all the features, because 8K is 4 times the resolution of Ultra HD. So if the switch is 4 times bigger, you can actually then combine everything together. So I thought it would be a really great way of making an 8K switcher, but really it's basically just a massive Ultra HD switcher. The other thing we also did is we wanted to make it easier for ATEM TV Studio customers to upgrade. So we've made some of the feature sets a little similar, so it's quite easy to upgrade if you're an ATEM TV Studio customer. Now we think this new switcher is going to be fantastic for concerts, live sports, studio broadcasts, keynote presentations, e-sport, even really large music festivals and news and other really quite high-end work. So let me show you the product. Here it is here. I'll take the little card off. Here's the ATEM Constellation. Now you can see that it's a fairly compact 2-rack units. It's got a front panel. It's a little bit similar to a TV Studio switcher. Without some of the audio controls, you can do them through the menus. But you can see it operates in quite a similar way. It's also got broadcast talkback on it. You've got quite a large LCD for monitoring and menus. And also it's got redundant power supplies because it's a high-end switcher. Now, the nice thing about having a front panel on the switcher, which we've realized with the TV Studio switches, is you've got full control, and you can use that when you're setting up or for emergencies. And so it's a little similar to how a TV Studio works. You've got the program and preview buses all on the front. You can do cut transitions once you've selected the sources, or you can do normal transitions. You can actually select transitions on the front here. And these are professional switcher buttons. These are the buttons that we use on the larger panel, so they're really good quality buttons. Now you've got all your transition buttons here, so you can change between wipe. There's a dip to white, even DVE transitions. There's also upstream key control on here, downstream key is controlling. There's even fade to black on here as well. There it is there, right on the front panel. And so you can see that you've got quite a lot of power there. It's it's probably more powerful than a TV Studio, except for audio. You do the audio through the menus because it's a big switcher. And I'll get to that in a minute, actually. It's a very big switcher. So this switcher, and in fact, I'll pull one out so I can show you the back, because you can see the front here, but it's actually much more logical when you can see the back. And you realize how big this switcher really is. Here it is. In fact, I'll make a bit of space by moving this over. And you can see it's got a big back panel. There it is there. I'll move it forward a bit so you can get a shot. So you can see it's actually got 40 12G SDI inputs. Now, what's interesting about that is it's 40 single link 12G SDI inputs. So it goes, each input can handle up to Ultra HD at 60 frames a second, 2160p 60. But when you switch to 8K, it now becomes 10 quad 8K inputs. And it'll let you operate at 4320p 60, which is 8K up to 60 frames a second. Now, the good thing is every single input is standards converted. So if you're running 8K, you can up convert from the inputs, and it'll let you run Ultra HD sources in even when you're running 8K. So you can up convert HD and Ultra HD sources up to 8K, so you can have a combination of sources. Now, the first 30 inputs there's 2 MADI outputs, and the first 30 inputs give you channels 1, 2, 3, and 4 are looped out to the MADI out. So if you want to pass all the audio off to a separate audio engineer, you can do that just by connecting to those 2 MADI connections. Because often the switcher guys, the guys are getting all the audio. Now, it's got 24 independent 12G SDI outputs. Now, what that means is that they are they're much more powerful than the aux outputs we have on our current switchers, because all the sources inside the switcher, as well as all the inputs, can be output to those outputs. So they're very, very flexible. So instead of having different types of outputs that we have on our switchers now, we just have 24 routable outputs. You can actually pretty much put anything out them. Now, so that means there's 24 single-link Ultra HD outputs, but that actually combines, when you switch to 8K, that now combines into 6 quad-link 8K outputs. So it's a pretty amazing switcher when it's running in 8K, because now you've got a 40 input and 24 output Ultra HD switcher and HD switcher. But when you're running in 8K, you've got 10 quad inputs and you've got 6 quad 8K outputs. So it's still a pretty big switcher for even when it's running 8K. And yeah, you can customize what sources you feed out to those outputs. They're like AUXes, but there's more available. So you can use them as clean feeds. Now the audio mix inside, the audio mixer is very powerful, and that outputs on all the SDI outputs. So whatever you're mixing comes out all the outputs. And also the timecode generator, there's a timecode generator inside. It's output on all the SDI outputs. There's camera control on all the SDI outputs. The tally, the talkback is all output. And because it's professional talkback, we've got engineering and production talkback out all those outputs. Now we've got Ethernet on the back there, you can notice, and it gives us a lot of flexibility in our control. Obviously it comes with the software that you can run Mac and Windows. In fact, I'll bring the software interface back up again over on the computer here so I can show you a few things. And that connects through the Ethernet, and that's how we've got this software over here is talking to that switcher, and that's the multi-view that's hanging off the back. Obviously we've got optional hardware panels. You've got the camera control and the 1ME panel I'm running here, which will control 4MEs. Also, there's a developer SDK, so if you want to develop your own custom computer-based solutions, you can do that. Now, another thing that's extremely powerful in the switcher is the multi-view. There's 4 completely independent multi-views. You can see there's 4 independent connections there. There they are there. Where are they? There. I've got a feel because I can't see. So there's 4 completely independent multi-views, but what's really interesting about these multi-views, obviously they're Ultra HD, but you can actually you can reconfigure them, so it's not just 8 sources and then program and preview. You can have up to 16 different views. It's really quite flexible, and they're all independent of each other. But again, when you switch to 8K, they now all combine into one 8K multi-view. And you've got to see what an 8K multi-view looks like when you've got it on a big TV. It looks incredible. It's like amazing. And 8K quality is just like, it's the most incredible multi-view you've ever seen. And of course, 8K television's around now, so you can plug that in. Again, the sources to the multi-view are fully routable. You can have a look at all the inputs and outputs can come up on the multi-view sources. So there's a lot more flexibility in what you can bring up into the multi-view views. There's 5 different styles of the multi-views that you can pick from. You can have a 4-up view, 7-up, 10, 13, and 16 different views, and it's configurable. And of course, a bit like some of the other switches, you've got a custom label, VU meters, and tally on the views. So what I might do is if we just quickly go across to the user interface, I'll actually show you how the multi-view works, so you can get a bit of a feel about how that all works. So if we have a look over here on the UI, I'll go down to the switcher settings, and you can see, actually, I'm up on the multi-view page here. And you can see this is the multi-view configuration here, so I can change that. And now it'll change that multi-view view to 4-up. And if I look over here, you can see now it's taken that preview screen that I had and it's made it now 4 extra sources. So you can and you can actually do it on the other one as well. So if I select that, and you'll see it'll switch over. It's in the process of switching right now. And now it's come up, and now I've got 16 different views. So you can really modify that any way you like. So I'll switch it back to the kind of rough view that I normally use. I normally use this one. But if you look over here, you can see I've got multi-view 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they're all completely different. They can all be configured completely differently. So it's really quite, it's extremely powerful. It's just a big switcher, but it's also, in some ways the guys have spared no expense. They've just put everything that everyone's ever asked in this switcher. I mean, the ATEM Constellation doesn't have really at no point do we almost say no. We just said yes to everything that we've always wanted. It's the dream switcher that we've always wanted to have. Again, the built-in DVE, let's talk about the DVE. There's 4 Ultra HD DVEs in this. But they all combine into one 8K DVE. So you actually have an 8K DVE when you're in 8K mode, or you've got 4 completely independent DVEs. They can do position, resize, scale, all in real time. So you can use it for picture-in-picture. Also, you've got borders, drop shadow, light source, transitions, and graphic wipe. Oh, sorry, you can use it for graphic wipes, but all the capabilities there to configure it, and you can use them for transitions and graphic wipes, because it's a conventional DVE. It works just like the DVE in the current ATEMs, except you get 4 of them in Ultra HD. As far as transitions go, you get all the same powerful transitions that we've always had, and you can customize them. So we haven't simplified anything. In fact, even in 8K, it's still just as powerful. So you can still set the border color and border width and position and direction and things like that on the transitions. But when you switch to 8K, all those transitions still work the same. There's nothing missing. You still get all the same capability, but the transitions are in native 8K. So you get, DVE, graphic wipe, stinger, because you've got the DVE running in 8K, plus of course cut, mix, wipe, dip, and preview transition. You can also do the preview transition. That functionality is all still there as well. So it's very, very powerful, even in 8K. Instead of 4 DVEs, you get 1. And nothing's really compromised. It really is a fantastic native 8K switcher. Now the talkback again, because it's such a high-end switcher, we've changed the talkback a little bit. It's more professional. I mean, there's nothing unprofessional about the current talkback, but we use aviation headsets on the TV studio switches because they're much more accessible and they're very robust and tough. Some of the TV studio switches wind up in education and areas like that. But on this switcher, we've gone for a really high-end 5-pin XLR headset, which is a standard headset used in high-end television. It's on the SMPTE Fiber products that we have. So it's also now on the front of this switcher as well. You can see it here. And we have some talkback control. Now we have, essentially the talkback's built in. And we have some control of it so that you can actually plug, at least one person can plug straight into the front. Now, if you've got this in a rack somewhere in an engineering area, that could be the engineering guy plugged in here, or you could have it in your rack, near where you're using it, so you can be using that talkback yourself. And you've got volume controls and quite a lot of capability there. So it's very powerful. And of course, it's also compatible with Clearcom and RTS. We've got a connector on the back here. We can expand it. And that means you can connect into those talkback systems that are pretty much the standard in broadcast. Also, we have things like side tone. Again, the talkback is sent out to the cameras via SDI. We use channels 15 and 16 of the SDI outputs of the program return feeds to the cameras. That's how we talk to the Blackmagic cameras because we use that for SDI for talkback. But the engineering talkback uses channels 13 and 14. So we're essentially using 4 of those little used audio channels up the top of the SDI spec to give us essentially 2 talkback loops, a program talkback loop and an engineering talkback loop. The other thing we can do is we can get mix minus on all these outputs as well. So if you want to feed out, sort of feeds out to people that you may be doing interviews with them and you don't want their voice going back to them, you can actually do mix minus mixes on all the outputs as well. Plus also when you're doing talkback, you can mix in a bit of the program audio into the talkback headsets and can help you sort of keep aware of what's actually going on. And the other thing too is you can actually mix the amount of, like the side tone, you can have a mix of how much of your own microphone voice goes back into the headset. And also one thing is the audio mixer, which the TV studio has, the audio mixer has the microphone from the talkback headset into it. So if you wanted to use the voiceover mic as actually a voiceover microphone, you can, because you can take the microphone in the headset and actually mix that into your audio mix if you choose. Now, as far as media storage, we've got internal media storage in the switcher. It leaves a lot of the inputs free for live sources because you've got a lot of graphics internally. When you switch to 8K, all the graphics are native 8K. So when you're running an 8K, you've got 20 stills in 8K, or you've got 64 stills when you're running an Ultra HD. But you have motion graphic clips. So it means you can do stingers. You've got stills for graphic wipes. It's all managed via the software control. So you can see if I go into the media page, I've got all my media here and you can see all that. And you can upload the media in here. You've got 4 media players on the switcher, of course, because everything's multiplied by 4. And also you've got a Photoshop plugin, so you can download directly from Photoshop. Now, the switcher also has the ATEM Advanced keys. It's got 16 keys. Now, the great thing about the ATEM Advanced chroma key is that it's got a color picker, so you can sample colors. You've got edge control and flare. You can even do some foreground color correction, so you can really get a nice blend of your chroma key. There's a linear key also as part of the ATEM Advanced key. So, you can do pattern and DVE keying. Now you get 16 keys, 16 advanced ATEM Advanced keys in Ultra HD and HD, and they all combine to become 4 ATEM Advanced keys in 8K. So even in 8K, you still actually get 4 8K high quality chroma keys. So it's pretty amazing. And you've still got 2 downstream linear keys. And so, that can be really useful. I mean, it's a wonderful set of keying. And I know people that actually just use computer graphics coming in. They render a green background or a blue background and just use the chroma key to essentially allow them. It's sort of like using a color as a key channel, so you only need 1 input. So it's really quite powerful what you can do with the keys, even if you're not really using them for, generally all those keys are used for virtual sets and uses like that, but you can use them for graphics use as well. Now the switcher handles lots of different rates. It does HD, 4K and 8K, HD, Ultra HD and 8K. It does 720p up to 60p, 1080p up to 60p, 1080i up to 5994. It does 2160p up to 60p, and obviously 8K up to 60p as well. So it's all multi-rate, and of course it does the up conversions. Now it does come with that software control, so you can do switcher control all on the software, and you can have as many copies as you like. So you can have different people. Well, someone could be doing audio mixing, or someone else is doing some camera control. So you can spread that software around and talk to all the have multiple people working together. Obviously, the software lets you do like save states. You can save and restore the switcher state. You can do the media pool management. You can also record macros and trigger macros. And there's HyperDeck control management in there as well. And that software comes on Mac and Windows. But one of the other really powerful things about the switcher is it's got a massive audio mixer in it. I mean, it's really big. You know, we've obviously Fairlight's part of Blackmagic Design. So we've actually put a Fairlight audio mixer in this with 156 audio channels. It's crazy. Now, what that means is you can do all the live audio mixing from all the SDI inputs, but you get an extra 64 channels in via MADI. So what that means is you can have all the sources that you have coming in as video, but you can essentially bring in extra stuff like microphones and other things that you might have, and you can actually do the audio mixing internally. So not only can you get the audio from all those 30 sources out to a separate audio engineer, but you can actually have the audio mixing happen inside the switcher as well, because you can get so much extra in apart from just the SDI sources. You've got all access to a whole bunch of other audio sources. You just got to use a MADI converter to get them in, and there's a connector on the back there for that. Now, even though it's a really big audio mixer, each input has 6-band parametric EQ, and all the channels have dynamics. So you've got like compressor, limiter, noise gate, expander, things like that. You've got the direct or audio follow video settings. You can also mix audio in from the analog input. You can mix audio in from the talkback mic, like I mentioned. You can also mix audio in from the media players, and you can do all that via software control. And it also works with Mackie compatible control panels as well. So what I might do is I might quickly show you the audio page, and then I'll show you something else that's really cool coming up as well. So if I go into the audio page, you can see really how many audio channels we've got here. So if I scroll along those, you can really see just how many audio channels this thing has. It's quite funny. Let me just keep going. It just keeps going and going and going. It is just huge, which is kind of exciting actually. But if I go to say one of the channels that's got some mixing on it, let me have a look here. Well, we've got some, if I click on one of those, you can see that I've got compressor limiters, and I've also got equalization, so I can run, this is on all the inputs, you know, I can run the 6-band parametric EQ here. Now what's interesting is if I come along and I start doing some audio work, now the thing is, what's interesting about this is this audio mixer is basically almost too big. I mean, it's way too big to operate from the software control. So what we've done is we've allowed the Fairlight audio console to work with the audio mixer in the switcher. So if you look at the wide shot over there, you can see we have this massive audio console. And if I play with one of these, I'll just find my audio channel. There it is, look at that. So I don't know if you can see that, but if I've got one that's got audio on it. I'll go over here a bit. So you can see I've got audio channels, and as I move the audio channel on the UI, you can actually see I'm moving the audio channel up and down. In fact, I'll use this channel here because I've got a bit of equalization on it. So you can see there, you can see I'm moving it up and down. And if I go to, like if you can kind of, what I'll do is I'll go over to the panel, and as I change it, you'll see it change here. And I've also got some compressor limiter settings and some equalization. In fact, what I'll do is I'll go to this one here, because that one's, I've got some audio equalization here. There's my audio channel there. So let's have a look at this one, because I've got that going on here. So if I come over here and adjust this audio channel, you can see that as I'm adjusting this, you can see the faders working on the software. So they're working together. In fact, the software application is the host of the console. And not only that, if I come over here and start changing things, you can see I'm adjusting in the equalization window there, you can see I'm actually adjusting. I've got control over the 6-band parametric EQ and a whole bunch of balance controls and other settings in here. So the console essentially is now breaking out that audio mixer that's built into the switcher, and you can see this has sort of now manifests itself in essentially a hardware implementation of what you're seeing in software. But what's really funny about this is a 5-bay console. If I had 2 of these connected end to end, it still wouldn't be enough to handle the audio mixer that's in the switcher. The switcher audio mixer is still bigger than 2 5-bay consoles, which really shows you how big it is. It's quite amazing. But we really wanted to, we just feel like the guy doing live production has access to all the video sources and all the audio from that with just a little bit more audio, he could potentially do all the audio mixing, but he's not actually doing it. He's still switching. He can offer a console for the audio engineer to do the audio engineering, and all the mixing's inside the switcher. So I think it's a really exciting. It'll be really interesting to see how people do it. Will they break the audio out and do it separately, or will they use the audio mixer that's inside the switcher and operate with like consoles like the Fairlight console here? So the Fairlight console sold modular, so you can add different modules in. You obviously don't need the editor when you're doing audio mixing for the ATEM switcher, but you can see really what's possible. You can make it a beautiful, big, wonderful console that can be hanged down. So you can have all these wonderful control panels, camera control, and all this audio as well. So it's quite an integrated solution. Now, again, because it's a professional switcher, we've got some really good camera control capability in it. It works the same way a lot of the other switches do. So you can see we've got the camera control panel, which is fairly new, and we have all that working. You can control up to 4 cameras, but you can obviously change camera numbers really quickly. So it's 4 cameras simultaneously, but you can really quickly dial in other cameras. So you can control much more than 4 cameras just by dialing in. So you've got the ability to do 4 at the same time, or you can add other panels. So that's really good. And you've got beautiful joysticks and control, and you can even do RGB balance over here. And so that's a really wonderful capability. So you can see how all these panels all work together. Some of the other products that works with, obviously, Ursa Broadcast and our studio cameras work with the SDI camera control protocol. The SMPTE Fiber products we have professional SMPTE Fiber links for those for the Ursa Broadcast and Ursa Mini Pro cameras. And the new HyperDeck Extreme HyperDeck you can control it from the switcher. So it's really quite a powerful integrated system of bits, and you can really buy the modules you need based on how your production's unfolding. Now, the other thing is worth mentioning is all these features are included. There's no license fees or anything for any of this. I mean, all those features you see are there. They're available, so you get them when you buy the switcher. So what I'd like to do now is just show you a few of the switcher features, and then we'll switch it to 8K, and you can see how that transition happens. So let's have a look over here at the UI. And you can see as I come over here, you can see I've got some keys. I've got DVEs on all the keys. Have got their own DVE. I'm running an Ultra HD here. I've shown you the multi-view, so you can see that I had 4 multi-views, but let's just bring that up again. So you can see I've got the 4 multi-views here. I've got little controls here. So what we'll do is we'll switch it over. Let's switch it over to 8K and then see what happens. So I'll bring up my control here, and I'll go back to the general settings, and you can see I've got the menu here that shows you the different video standards. You've got all the different video standards the switcher can do, and I'll just pick the highest frame rate, 8K, and then switch that. And I'll just confirm that. Now, when you do that switch over, the switcher now will restart and do its thing and relaunch itself. Now, what's interesting is it's now combining all these features together. Because 8K is 4 times the resolution, it's taking the 4 DVs and combining them into one DV that's 4 times the resolution. Same thing with the keys. So you can see now we've got a 1ME switcher. It's combined all 4 MEs into 1ME. It's combined all 16 keys into 4 keys. It's combined all 4 Ultra HD DVs into one 8K DVE. And the same thing with media players. Go to the media. Now we've got one 8K media player. We've got all our clips. The audio mixer, funny enough, stays the same. So it's still big. And now we've got our 8K sources. Now what's also interesting, let me go into the multi-view and I'll show you the multi-view so you can get a feel of that. See, now we've got one 8K multi-view, but I can reconfigure it and change the settings on the multi-view. And I've got up to 16 sources, and that's an 8K multi-view. In fact, that's actually a 4K monitor that's being down converted into it, but I'll get to that in a minute. But you can see I've got the ability to run 8K, and the multi-view takes care of it all, and it's still reconfigurable. I've set that back now to preview and program and the 8 views, 8 sources. So you can really see how powerful that is. But what's interesting to note is that we only have one 8K source. I'll play the deck going in, and I need to go and configure that. If I go into my multi-view, so I'll just set that input there to HyperDeck 1, and I should see my 8K source come up. Yep, there it is. So you'll notice this view here is actually an 8K source, but all those other sources are actually Ultra HD. So what the switch is doing is when we switched it from Ultra HD across to 8K, it's up converting all those sources and still using them. And some of those are different frame rates. So now I've still got a whole bunch of inputs still coming into the switcher, even though they're not actually 8K, because it's just doing up conversion. And when we switched the switcher across to 8K, it just took care of all that automatically. Didn't really care, whatever's coming in, it'll up convert it to 8K and then use it. So it means you've got really a lot of capability of switching to 8K, even if you only got one or two sources that are 8K, but still being able to use a bunch of other cameras and things that might not be running in 8K yet. So it's an extremely, as you can see, it's an extremely powerful switcher, a monster of a switcher. I mean, it's a monster Ultra HD switcher, but also it lets us dip into some new 8K workflows, which I think will be really exciting. Particularly, I'm quite interested to see the all these big live stage shows where they've got these massive screens with incredibly high resolution. I think it'll be nice to try and drive all those screens in 8K. So I'm really curious to see how some of the more high-end work gets done. So this switcher is obviously it's a monster. It's and it's $9,995. It's just under $10,000 US, and it's actually available now and it's in stock. So if you want to order one, you can get one right now. Okay, so we've got a great switcher, we've got a great HyperDeck, but we really need a good monitoring solution. So we're also introducing another 8K device. It's Teranex Mini SDI to HDMI 8K HDR. And what this converter does is it's a Teranex Mini. It's half rack unit width, and it's not a third rack unit width, but it's half rack unit width. And it lets you use televisions and video projectors as broadcast monitors. Now we really need this for like DaVinci monitoring. We have a Decklink 8K Pro card and it outputs Quad-Link SDI. And we want to be able to use, get really good quality monitoring solutions for DaVinci. But obviously with the live production with the switcher, we're running a Teranex Mini SDI to HDMI 8K to drive this monitor here. And so, you know, we're using it for the switcher on the demo, and also we can use it off the output of this, although this does have HDMI output. If you're running 8K monitoring, you can plug into this. So for live production, I think it's really important as well. But even digital signage, the converter will do quad split, so you can bring in interleave, but it'll actually output quad split, so you can actually drive really large digital signage, video, you know, LED walls and things like that. Theatre projection, live concerts. It's got quite a lot of uses. Now I'll bring one out. Here it is here. Here's the converter. So you can see it's a nice little unit. Now you can position that on a desktop, or it also will rack mount. We've got a couple of them rack mounted over here. So you can see it. Here's the standard Teranex Mini rack shelf. Now it's got a lot of really nice capabilities. It's got a lot more power than just a simple converter. It'll do 8K to HD or Ultra HD down conversion. I think I might have mentioned that earlier in the video, but that's actually just an Ultra HD monitor. So while I've got 8K fed into it, it's detected that there's only an Ultra HD monitor plugged in, automatically down converted so I can still see a picture. You know, it communicates with the EDID from the HDMI display, works out what the television can do, and then takes care of it. So what that means is you can get 8K displays on like a normal television. And you can also pretty much route any signal into it because it'll just detect what's coming in, it'll know what monitor's connected, and it'll just switch across automatically. Now it's Quad-Link 12G SDI for 8K. So it supports, you know, HD, Ultra HD, 4K and 8K formats. It does 720p up to 60p, 1080i up to 59:4. It does 1080p up to 60p. It does 1080 PSF up to 30 frames a second. Does 2K, does 4K, does Ultra HD up to 60p, and does 8K up to 60p. And it'll convert to a side of square division, which is what I was just talking about, where it does the tiling thing. So it doesn't matter actually what's coming in or what the monitors will do, it'll take care of it all. And it uses those 4 HDMI outputs to connect to 8K monitors because they use 4 HDMI connections. So also, by the way, it'll also do level A and level B if you're running in 3G SDI, and it also does WAV and RGB SDI connections. It supports HDR via the SDI, so if you connect a HDR display, it'll detect HDR coming in through the SDI and it'll switch across. Now, the other cool thing it's got is it's got built-in scopes. And we've got 2 scopes. There's actually dual scopes, and they overlay over the top of the picture. You've got 5 different scopes to choose from. You've got waveform, vector scope, parade, and histogram. And they also have HDR and SDR graticles, so depending what kind of signal's coming in, you can actually, the scope will change over to an HDR scope if you need it. And they display about 1/16 of the screen size, but you can change that. You can reposition them on the screen and you can adjust opacity. The other thing it's got is built-in 33-point 3D lookup tables. Now, 33-point lookup table is actually the standard in sort of the film industry, and you can use them for creating film looks, but you can also use them for monitor calibration, and you can save and load the LUTs via the utility. Now, the other thing we've done, we haven't really just stopped there. We've also got monitor calibration built in. So you can actually match you can have different brand monitors, even actually monitors from the same brand can sometimes vary in color. So you can now connect a USB color probe. We work with the SpectraCal and the X-Rite and the Klein color probes. And what the converter will do, it'll build a 3D lookup table automatically and let you calibrate the monitor. There's like an internal test signal generator, and it'll build a LUT for you automatically. And there's on the on-screen menus you can do that. So not only do you have the video and audio monitoring on the display on the front, but you've also got the setups and 3D LUT buttons, and the calibration is done via those menus. And there's other features like, the instant lock on the HDMI, we have that feature. And also network configuration, when you're setting up, because you can access the utility externally through the Ethernet. It's got an Ethernet connection, and that you can set up the network settings on the front there through the settings on the front. Because unlike the other Teranex Minis, the third rack unit ones, have an optional front panel with this LCD. The half rack width Teranex Minis have the LCD as standard, so you always get the menus and the settings on the front for this model. The software utility that comes with it can work on Mac and PC, so you can change settings through that. In fact, you can plug in the utility via a USB or Ethernet, so you can have the utility on a computer, plug into the front with USB, or you can plug in, connect via Ethernet to remotely manage it. You can do software updates, and you can actually even reposition scopes and save and load LUTs through the utility as well. It also works, as I mentioned, with the Teranex Mini rack shelf, which we have behind us. So you can use that and rack mount them, so you can rack mount 2 of them. So what I'll do is I'll quickly show you, before I talk about the availability, I'll talk about, let me show you quickly how it works. I've got 2 over here. This is the one I've got here, and you can see I can actually got a LUT that's loaded in at the moment. I'm applying that just with the button on the front. So it's a 3D LUT. If I go into the menus, I can scroll through the menus here. I don't know if you can get a close-up of that and see. It's a little bit low, so it might be a little bit difficult to do. But I can change the scopes here. So I can go into that, and I can turn on the waveform. Oops. There it is. So it's a bit hard to see the scope, of course, because I've got a multi-view as the source. So there's already a whole bunch of divisions on the multi-view. But you can see I've got scopes up here, and they're running real time. And in fact, this is 8K, so that's all running in 8K as a source. And the converter itself is actually converting to the monitor, but the scope is all being drawn in 8K. Now I can reposition that and change the opacity so it blends over the screen. I'll turn that back off again because we don't really want that. The other thing I can do is go through to the calibration settings. And what I can do is plug in the probe. Now I've got a color probe here. Here's one here, and I've got it set up on a stand, so I can open that up. A lot of times you just hang these off the front of the monitors, but you can place the probe against the monitor. Then I can plug in, that's USB, but the converter is actually USB-C, which is the modern USB standard, so I've got a little adapter on here. Now if I plug that into the front, whoops, wrong converter. If I plug it into here, I'll turn my sound down here. Now I've got that plugged in, I can set the calibration process. And then the first step, now I won't actually run the calibration process. It takes about 5 minutes to run through all the cycles and build the lookup table. What's nice though is once it's built the lookup table, you can actually download that and put it into other converters that have the same monitors. So you don't necessarily have to calibrate every single monitor if you've got pretty good matched monitors. Although, if you've got the probe, you can just move it from monitor to monitor. But you could share that lookup table with other people. Once you've calibrated the monitor, if that brand is pretty stable, then you probably could even be able to share that through your facility or other facilities. So what it'll do first, it'll show a test signal, and you've got some instructions there on setting the brightness and contrast of the screen. Then if you proceed, it'll then go through and use the color probe data and talk to the probe, and then build a 3D lookup table and put all the test signals up. And the converter's doing that for you. But I won't do that because in this case, I don't really want to spend 5 minutes really calibrating the monitor right now. But you can see how that works, so it's worth, I just wanted to show you quickly how that works. But it works within the unit. You don't need the software utility to do it. You can plug the probe straight into the unit and do it. Now the price for the full converter, which has got all the scopes and the calibration and 3D LUTs and all that down conversion capability and all that, is $1,295. And it should be available about June, we think. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is a really big release for us, is DaVinci Resolve. Now I've got a clip that I've recorded in another room because obviously if you show, this is not a great environment to show you DaVinci. So I'll run the clip and I'll let you see that, and then once the clip's finished, I'll come back and keep talking about some other things. So we've got a big release with DaVinci Resolve 16 this year, but what I wanted to talk about in this video is we've been thinking a lot about editing, specifically the speed of editing. I've come from a TV commercial post-production background, and what I've noticed about editing software is it doesn't really quite work the way TV commercial editors work. Editors doing TV commercials don't really use some of the features in traditional editing software because they just don't have the time. So we really were thinking about that and sort of really doing a lot of sort of discussion about how we might increase the speed of editing. And it's not just TV commercial guys as well. I mean, TV commercial guys, we've got 3 clients coming through a day, knocking out stuff really quickly, stuff we haven't seen before. And so, that was at the top of our mind, because obviously DaVinci Resolve is really important in the high-end part of the industry. But we were also thinking about news, and people doing news got some of the same time constraints. And not only that, what's interesting about the way DaVinci fits in with news is that, in the old days, you'd knock out a minute or so segment for a news program and it would be discarded. But now that those stories are turning into magazine shows and also becoming documentaries. So DaVinci's finishing all those, and that's why we've got some of our high-end cameras being used in news now, because the news part of the of TV station is actually now producing content which can be sold. So it's becoming more of a revenue generation area because they're using it as a source of creating a lot of programming and things like that. But one of the other areas too that I think is really important, that I do think also suffer from the same speed issue, is high-end YouTube guys. I mean, you've got people on YouTube are often going to a conference or something and they're knocking out 4 or 5 different 15-minute episodes a day, and they're doing it from a hotel room, and they're presenting and shooting it themselves, and it's got high-end production values. I've never believed that YouTube was a market. I've always thought that YouTube was just a delivery platform. And the guys doing high-end work on YouTube, I mean, sure, there's consumers on there, but the guys doing high-end work are doing incredibly difficult stuff and incredible tiny budgets. And so we've never made crap products for the YouTube market, which is what you hear a bit. We've always felt that the YouTube guys need to be lifted up, and we need to produce high-end tools. When I was younger, I didn't want to use crap tools because I couldn't afford them. I wanted great tools. And so we were really thinking about how we could help the YouTube guys move up as well. So it kind of came out of the TV commercial background that I've had, but we're thinking about news, thinking about guys, the constraints on YouTube, guys, really just thinking about anyone who needs to knock out content really fast. In many ways, and sometimes it's, people that have got the focus on the program they're doing, they're less into the video editing part. So, so we felt like speed is a real issue, and we wanted to really think about that deeply. Now, we didn't change the edit page. I think the culture is different. The interesting thing about the edit page is people doing TV programming, doing movies, work like that. And I felt like the culture was different enough that it wasn't something that we should touch. We actually need to accommodate 2 different cultures. In fact, there's really 2 different edit cultures. In fact, I think there's 3, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I felt like there's actually really different cultures. So we felt like we needed to add another page. And the reason we've sort of come to that conclusion is we've used our manufacturing experience actually and applied it to editing. What's interesting about manufacturing is, and we're pretty good at it, people think, factories they're not, cool in pop culture. But what's interesting about factories is that, every movement that isn't productive is considered waste. In fact, everybody in a manufacturing process works together really closely to remove and eliminate waste. Anything you do that doesn't actually produce something productive is considered waste. So we started thinking, well, how does that matter when it comes to editing? I mean, if you think about it, when you're editing on the edit page, how much time are you actually spending doing something that's not producing any results, like I'm zooming or moving around, things like that. So you realize it actually really adds up. So on this new page, we felt like every single action should do something, and that would be a pretty good goal. So maybe what it's worth doing is I'll quickly show you by going to the edit page and having a bit of a look on some of the things that I feel are a little slow. So if you look at the edit page here, you can see I've got an edit up. Now, obviously, the most obvious annoyance I find is the vertical scrolling. I mean, how many times you've got a couple of tracks and the video scrolls off, and I think the vertical scroll bar is kind of annoying. Even the horizontal scroll bar. I mean, you're moving around. We've got these great contextual tools, but to use them, you've kind of got to zoom out, in to see where you are, or sort of zoom in to get good control of the tools. And look, it works really well, but you do tend to find you're scrolling around horizontally, or you've got to zoom out to sort of see where you're at, move to a different part of the timeline, then kind of zoom in again. So horizontal, scrolling, zooming, all these things are sort of, they feel like they're wasted time. Even the bin, I mean, you're dealing with thousands of clips or hundreds of clips. Dealing with the bin is slow. You start to think, what is slow? There's quite a lot that can be considered slow. But the good thing is, this is very traditional. It's got everything everyone's always asked us for. We've been we've done the right thing by making this edit page work this way. But it's a very traditional page. What we wanted to do is try something new. So add something new that gives us a chance to explore new options, but it doesn't pollute the professional editing page that we have. So we've got a new page called the cut page, and you can see it down the bottom here. And that gives us the ability to add a new page and add new workflows without affecting any of the other workflows that are here. Remember, DaVinci Resolve is based on cultures. So, you've got Fusion for visual effects guys, you've got Color for colorists, Fairlight for audio engineers. And in fact, you can do color correction in the Fairlight, in the Fusion page, but it's done in a way that visual effects artists need. So this is the way the cut page is, gives us a whole new page and actually a new culture. And that's what the pages really represent in DaVinci, they're different cultures. So the big question is we asked ourselves, because it's designed to edit fast, what can we remove? In many ways, by removing stuff, we can, because we've got the edit pages always there. This is specifically designed for cutting fast, but what it means, because the edit page is still there, we can actually remove some things because you can always go to the edit page. So it's great. It gives us a chance to try new ideas, specifically design it for cutting really quickly. There's nothing slow in there at all. And every action does something, but without affecting you can always go back to the edit page if you don't, work. In fact, in some ways, we were thinking, you could start out cutting in the cut page and then move across the edit page once you need to do some more finessing. You could basically use them both in combination, or you might want to just, you might be doing a job that you can completely finish in there. So every action does something, and also the tools are intelligent. You say 3-point editing. The problem with 3-point editing is the third point. Well, what about if the tools can work out where you want to put things in the timeline? Let's think about that. One of the other things we've also done is the features are visible. The edit page is so complex and there's so many features that a lot of them are hidden behind contextual menus, or there might be a mode that affects something. We wanted all the features to be visible in the cut page. But as I said, you've always got the edit page there for traditional editing. Having the edit page means we can sort of strip out things from the cut page to just stuff that's fast, because we know it's there. We've got that edit page to support us. So it is an independent page and it's an independent culture, but in some ways the traditional edit page can always be that foundation to allow it to be used in context on depending what you're working, depending how you're working. I think that's what it's a different cultural thing, but you can span cultures as well. So we think the cut page is a revolution in editing. We've done a lot of stuff by just completely reinventing the way things are done. And we don't think that there's really been a complete relook at how editing has been done as a process in really a long time. I mean, the edit page is really just a collection of stuff that people have asked us to do. We've done a lot of design layouts and things, but in many ways we wanted a chance to kind of really reinvent a way a lot of things work and how you can interact with them. And so this is kind of why I'm doing this video, to give you a bit of a background story. There's a lot of ideas in this page. But it's sort of, in many ways we feel like it's only half finished because there's a lot of little finessing things that we need to do. But we have got to this point now where we don't feel that we can move much forward. We can't move forward much faster than this because there's so many questions about how we should polish off some of these features. So we really need to talk to the DaVinci Resolve community and get this out there and see how we go. So let's have a look at the cut page. So I'll switch across. There it is there. Now what I might do is I might just delete all the media I have in here, so I can start fresh and I can show you how it works. So we've worked very hard, as I said, to make this a complete change in how we're editing, but you can see there's some similarities. It's not so crazily different that you can't recognize it. But let's have a bit of a look at the user interface, and we can show you, I'll go through the user interface and show you how some of the things work. So what's really important about this is it also handles smaller monitors. We've got customers that are out in, like a lot of people do guerrilla shoots nowadays. They rush off, like we do, the pocket camera was sort of designed for that. It's a full digital film camera, but it's in what looks a bit like a still camera. So people can go out and do guerrilla shoots, and they can just go in an alley somewhere and do a fashion shoot. And often they're doing DaVinci Resolve grading on set, but they're also editing maybe in a cafe nearby, and they can pick up any other shots if they realize they haven't quite got it right. You can pretty much do a rough cut on set. So we wanted this page to be able to handle smaller monitors. So you can see that a lot of things we've done to save real estate. And smaller monitors is really important. So we don't need a 1080 size monitor. In fact, you can do everything in this page. You can actually acquire, edit, and deliver all in this page. So small monitors have been a really an important goal for this. Now, if you look up the top here, you can see that we've got the bin here, but we've also got transitions, titles, effects. So we've got all those things here. So you can access them. And you can also resize. You can resize the viewer to change its size. So you can do all those things. But like we'll do first, let's, well, in fact, I'll show you how to import the media. I've already got some media in here, so I'll get rid of that because I'll bring it back in again. So you can do that right from here. You don't need to use the media page. Up the top here, we've got either individual, being able to import files, or you can import a whole folder. So we'll open up a whole folder. There's our disk there, and that's the folder of media we want, and we'll open it up, and there it is. We'll also create a new timeline in here, and there's going to be our edit. Now, what you'll notice is that what we've done is we've changed, you can change between bins. On the edit page, we have a sidebar here, which takes a bit of space. So you can just change between bins here. I can go into that bin with the media in it, and that's the folder. So you can just change between bins. I've also got different ways of looking at the bins. I've got, the ability to see an icon view here, but I can also change between a list view, which is traditional, but I've also got this clip view, which and with the clip view, it's quite nice. You can move around and see the whole clip's laid out, and it scrolls vertically. It's quite a nice way to look at things, but I'll go back to the icon view here so you can see that. Now, the other thing you'll have noticed is there's actually a dual timeline here. We have, one of the problems with the edit page is all this zooming in and out. So what we've decided to do is make a dual timeline. So the top part of the timeline here is the entire edit. The bottom part of the timeline is a zoomed in section. What this lets us do, and they're both really active timelines, they both operate. You can operate in both, and they're both synchronized. What it means you can do is you can always see the entire edit, but you zoomed in enough for the contextual menu tools, the contextual tools to work. So we've got the ability to, like in the edit page, you've got to zoom out to see where you are. Then you zoom in and you use the contextual tools. The tools don't work very well when you zoomed out too far. But in this, in the cut page, we have two simultaneous timelines, and they're interactive. You can work between them. So let's drag a couple of clips in, and we'll see how it works. So I'll just drag some stuff in. There it is. And then you can see how this is working. So I've got the top timeline is showing all those clips in here, and the bottom timeline, which scrolls around, is showing me a zoomed in version of it. So I can come along here, I can see the transition in here, and these all work. I can move clips around between the timelines and rearrange things, put them on different layers, whatever I like. This top timeline is an active timeline. It actually works. Now, at the moment, you can see that these scroll bars are working. The bottom one's actually a live scroll. The top one is a moving CTI. We'll probably have an icon over the left-hand side here to allow you to switch the bottom timeline, the lower timeline between those two different modes, because a lot of people don't want to have to move that. But we'll add, there's things to talk about at the show where we'll be able to change some of these things. Now you can trim in the timelines here. So if I go along here, you can see I can trim here. All the contextual menu tools work fine because I've got the ability to trim. They're always visible, but I can also trim up here. So you can see I can do all that trimming here. Now, the other thing I need to show you is trimming. Now, if I open up a clip in here, you can see that I can, I've got a combined scroll bar and trimming. Now, this is actually more accurate. A lot of editors, what they do is they throw a whole bunch of stuff into the timeline and chop out all the stuff that I need. Now, we actually kind of just did that. But what happens if you want to do it the other way around, where you really want to be much, much more accurately trimming content before you put it in the timeline? Well, we've got a completely revised scroll bar here, so you can see you can scroll through the media, but you've also got the ability to trim in here, and the trimming can be quite accurate. So let me show you that. So down the bottom here, I've got the in and out points. The graphics here aren't quite right, but that's the beta build. And I can go along here and I can set it. Now I can also set in and out points. I can set the out point through there. So you can see that I've got a, it's not drawing the audio waveform properly in this build, the wonders of beta software. But what we've got is the ability to move around the timeline, but I can also trim in here as well. And you can see that I can then change the length of the clips, of the clip in here, and then I can do various edit functions with that. Now, what I've also got is scratch trimming. The problem with the trimming just by using an in and out point is if you've got a really long clip, then the difficulty is that, as you're moving this, it can actually be, tens of seconds of trimming with each pixel that you're moving. So this varies a little bit based on how long the clip is. If the clip's short, you can trim it more accurately. So we wanted to actually allow you to trim independently of how long the clip is. So if you go to the sides here, this is called scratch trimming. And what you can do is when you trim that, the same amount of mouse movement is going to do the same amount of trimming, and you can see the frame numbers changing there. And here's the out point one. And these are mouse relatives, so you're not actually clicking, like, you know, even though this is on the right-hand side, you can move the mouse quite away and move quite back, you know. But the good thing is it's a fixed amount of trim depending on how far you move the mouse. So it doesn't matter how long the clip is. If you're moving in here and you say, okay, this is the bit I want here, you put an out point in, now you can scratch trim that up to get it exactly where you kind of want. It doesn't matter how long that clip is. That could be an hour clip in there, or it could be a 15-second clip. That scratch trimming is always going to behave the same way. So scratch trimming is quite powerful. Now, we also have, as I mentioned, the edit modes are intelligent. What we really want to do is not have to put in points on the timeline. You really want it to sort of think for itself a little bit more, so you can work faster. So let me, what I'll do is I'll delete the clips on the timeline. Get rid of those so we can drop some stuff in. Let's go to we'll go to the wide shot. We've got a wide shot here somewhere, this is it. And let's put a in point in here and an out point in there. And we'll be able to do some edits and I can show you how this works. Now we've got, on the left-hand side here, this is where the edit modes are. Now, as I mentioned, they're a little different. So I'll go through them and explain what they are, and then I can show you a couple of them. Now, we've got Smart Insert as the first one. Now, that's a bit different to a normal insert because what it'll do is instead of in a normal insert, you've got to basically cut the clip and put it in. This will look for the transition closest to where the CTI is in the timeline and insert there. It'll assume that you want to insert in a gap that you already have. So it's a bit smart on that. You don't need to put an in point on the timeline. It'll just find the spot. It knows that that's probably where you want it and put it in for you. Append is the same as append to end. That's adding clips to the end. If you're grabbing content and laying it out, that's the one you use the most, and it just keeps adding clips to the end. We've got ripple override. Great thing about ripple override is if you want to replace a shot, you can do that with ripple override. It'll swap the shot out and ripple the timeline length. One thing we've really focused on this page is not obsessing about fixed program lengths. These days, most programs can be variable length because the online streaming platforms, YouTube, or all these other platforms don't really specifically care about program length. But you can. There's a lot of really powerful trim modes that we've got in the cut page, which let you then trim it to the length you want. But that's why ripple override, we think, is a more important transition. The next one is we've got close-up. Now, close-up is really quite interesting. What it does is often a lot of people are shooting single camera and they want to get close-ups from that camera. So you shoot a bit wide, and then what you want to do is get a bit close. So all you have to do is go to the point you want in your clip and then work out the source, work out your in and out points. And then when you do that edit, it'll actually sync that clip to the clip on the timeline and it'll zoom it in a little bit so you can essentially get a close-up. And you can roll along and basically just get close-ups, and adds a bit of variation, but you're creating your close-ups from that slightly wide shot. So you can do single camera shooting and then do the close-ups you need. Now, place on top is pretty obvious. It's the traditional place on top. It'll drop it on top of the timeline. And source override is another new edit mode, which I think is pretty powerful. What it does is if you're doing an interview and you've got, say, 3 cameras, you've got a wide shot, maybe you're doing an interview, you've got three cameras, wide shot of the interviewer and the interviewee, you've got a close-up of the interviewer and a close-up of the interviewee. Now, what I would do is I would edit the base track would be from the wide shot. So you trim a bit off the front, trim a bit off the end, and that would become basically your program length. Now, you could use multicam for this, but what it lets you do is you can then go to the close-up of the interviewer and just scroll along and look for bits where they're talking animatedly or they're getting excited, and just mark in and out on that and then do a source override. What it'll do is it'll look for the time code in the clip that's on the timeline already, and it'll look for the time code that syncs to that in the source clip, match them together, and it'll place it on the timeline on the layer above, synchronized. So what it means is instead of, like, if you had a 40-minute interview, in multicam you've got to go through 40 minutes of that to get, to choose all your shots. But if you're, and of course you've got interruptions to recording, that creates more complexity. But with source override, all you need to do is lay down your base track and then just drop extra cutaways on top, and it'll automatically synchronize them onto the timeline as you go. It's really quite powerful, and it lets you build up a sort of like a multicam, but doing it in pieces. Particularly good when you've got disrupted content. So that's how we do that. So let's have a look at some of the edit modes. We'll do a bit of a demo. We'll demo append first. That's the simplest one. That's the one you're often doing. Now I've selected a clip here, so let's just click append. There it is there. Let's find something else. So this is what would happen. Say if you were doing a a show where you had different, like maybe you'd shot something, like I was watching a guy rebuild a car engine on YouTube the other day. He shot that single camera. He's just gone through, as he's done the engine rebuild, he's just basically shot that process. Now, if you just, with append, you just add various shots in time, you pick out the bits you want, just go append, there it is there, and you can see you're just building up a timeline. Let's get, now this is actually basically a multicam type shot. So this is not really shot for appending to the end, because these are different camera views, the content I've got here, but you can see, append to end lets you build up a timeline here. Now, the reason I wanted to do that is let's do a source override. In fact, what I'll do is I'll delete the content. I'll delete everything from here. I'll put down the wide shot I've got here. I'll drop that into the timeline. And then now I've got my whole timeline is that. In fact, I need to trim a little bit off the front, so let's trim a little bit off there, because I think it starts with a clapper. Now here's my timeline, here's my base layer. So let's show source override with this. So let's go to a close-up. In fact, what we'll do is we'll go to a bit where she's cutting something there. You can see she's cutting something. Let's find the chopping board part, chopping board clip. Now if I push F, I can match frame. Now what it's done is it's matched this clip's frame I've got in the viewer here to the shot that's in the timeline. So I can mark an in point on that, and I'll scroll down a little bit and maybe mark an out point. I might scratch trim that a little bit just to move it a bit further down. Now, as you notice, as I'm scratch trimming, you notice it's drawing the zoomed in version of the audio waveform. Lets you cut against dialogue, and I can then make sure that my out point matches, just after she finishes speaking or before she starts talking. Now, if I do a source override, what it's going to do now is scroll. It's added that shot, and it's synchronized to where she's cutting. So it's gone and taken the source timecode of this clip, the endpoint, and it's synchronized the timecode that was already on the timeline. Now that's pretty powerful, because what it means I can do is I can go along here and just look really for anywhere where she's doing anything. Like for example, those shots there. I could then take an in point of that and an out point of that and go source override. And what I'm doing is I'm dropping all these views down onto the timeline as the cutaways. And so you can basically lay down your base layer, then go to one of the cutaways. As long as the time codes, all the cameras had time of day code, we obviously need to add some other ways of synchronizing the various camera shots. But for the moment, it uses time of day code that you record on the cameras. You can pretty much just roll along the cutaways and just find interesting bits, mark in, mark out, drop it into source override. So you can see how powerful source override can be. Now the other one we can do is, let's go back here somewhere and we'll do a close-up. So if I go to, well actually let's find a spot here where they're together, and we can go across back to this clip here, and we can do a match frame, and we'll put an in point there, and we'll move down and do an out point. Now if I do close-up, what it's going to do is, let's move down here a bit, it's going to move, so what it's done is it's put the same clip on top of the other clip, but it's zoomed it in a bit. Now it's worth noting that we have some of the settings in here, so I can go into this section here. Whoops, I need to go into this clip, it's the one I want, and I can just move it down a little bit, so we can just get it looking good as a close-up. There it is there. And so now what I've got is a really nice little close-up, and I can zoom it back and do a bunch of other changes to it. But you can see how close-up just makes it super easy to create essentially a close-up camera view from the one wide shot, so you can do single camera shooting. So you can see that's pretty exciting. Now, you can do all sorts of trimming in the timeline. Now, the timeline supports trimming in a number of different ways. So if you look down at the lower timeline here, you can see that I can do various trimming. And I'm going to wreck my synchronization here because I'm going to show you some of the trimming. Really, I wouldn't want to do some of the trims I'm about to do, but you can see I can do trimming here on the in point. I can do the same thing on the out point. I can actually slip the clip. So if you look at this shot here, this will slip in. This is where I lose my synchronization, but I'm slipping the clip up and down. So in the edit page, we can do all the trimming on the edit points, but slipping, you'd have to change tools. In here, again, that philosophy of just being able to do everything directly, we have an icon on the clip, and we can slide it up and down in there. So you can go and directly slip a clip without needing to change tools. Now, maybe some of these things might wind up on the edit page as well, but we'll let people tell us what they think you want to steal from here and put in the edit page, and there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff people want to steal from the edit page and put in here. That's going to be some fantastic conversations we'll be able to have. Of course, you can move clips in here too. You can move it up to an extra layer. You can do a whole bunch of other stuff. And that's the lower timeline. But also it's worth noting in here that when I do trimming, the trim editor is coming up. Now there's a trim editor in the viewer and it's appearing. And so what that lets me do is I can do fairly coarse trimming down here. And that's, letting me do a lot. And I can, of course, trim up here, but in the trim editor, you can see I've got a scratch type trimming and it's very fine. I can do very fine adjustments. And I can move it quite a lot. And I get these frame counts to show me how far out I'm trimmed from what my trim point is. Not only that, I've also got some audio there so you can see where I'm trimming any fine points that you can cut against. There's also nudging. I can nudge individual frames of my trim point, and that all works. So you can see there's quite a lot of power in trimming. But not only that, like I was saying before, the upper timeline is also just as important. I can trim in here, and I think so you see I can move clips around. I can trim them, change length. You can see they're interacting directly together. You can see they're completely synchronized and locked together. I can also move a clip from the below here and drag it up down the right-hand side of the timeline and maybe drop it down the end here and put it down here. So you can see that I can pull a clip up and move it all the way down the timeline and bring it back to the other side. I could move this down and drag it down and put it in the gap. So you can move clips up and down timelines, move around really fast. It's really quite nice. So let's go down the end here. One of the other features I want to show you as well is I've been doing some of the trimming in the timeline here. You can see the contextual chill changes give me the ability, a lot of control over that. But also, one of the other problems with when you're editing is sometimes I just want to drop dissolves into various transitions. Sometimes I don't. And it can be annoying to sort of come up here and go, okay, I've got to put a transition in or a filter, a transition. What I really want to do is just be able to basically switch transitions. So if you look at the buttons here, I can add a dissolve by basically just turning it on, or I can turn it off, which is kind of nice. I've also got the smooth cut transition. So a lot of people that are doing interviews, they cut pieces out and find that they've got jump cuts. Having the smooth cut transition here is really useful because it gives you that smooth blend. Now this is two very dissimilar clips, so it's the wrong type of transition here. But you can see that I get the ability to basically just switch in and out transitions, which is really useful. And you can also trim the duration of the transition, and you can do it here too. Yeah, doing it here is very smooth. You can see this transition's longer than what will fit in this space here, so it's now counting up by multiples of 3 in the frames, but you still have the ability to scratch individual frames in length. In fact, it's 2 frames per movement because you're trimming a frame off either side of the transition, but you can see what I mean. You've got the ability to trim in 3 places. You can do quite coarse trimming in the upper timeline, more finer trimming in the lower timeline, and then frame accurate trimming in the trim editor. So you can see how they all interact with each other. You've literally got 3 different user interfaces all working at the same time. It's extremely powerful. Okay, so the next big thing to talk about is bins. Now, this is another area that I think is a big issue. Bins are very slow. One of the things about linear editing, and one of the things we've lost in some ways, is that it was very fast to find shots because you just had a tape. I mean, you could just put the cassette in. Here's a cassette here. This is the sticker of the company I used to work for. But I didn't steal this tape. That was given to us recently, but it's a very old tape. So this tape, you could just scroll up and down the tape. All the shots are on here, and you can just pick which shots you wanted. The problem with linear editing is you've got hundreds of clips, and you've got to go through and find clips, and no one's got time to label clips. If you're doing programming work, people did have time to do that. You could get all the clips, label them, work out what you had, put them in different bins, and organize everything. People don't really have a lot of time for that. So what we wanted to do is recreate the tape, and we've called it source tape. So if we go up into the top here, you'll notice there's these buttons here, and now we're on the timeline currently. But if I go and click to this button, what you see it's done is it's gone and got all the clips in the bin, and they've basically arranged them all into one long tape. Now I think there's about an hour of content here, but you can now scroll through, and this is just different camera shots. So you can see I can scroll all the way up and down here now, and I can do in and out points of anywhere I like, and I can take stuff. So you can see how really nice, and I can also switch to a single clip view. I can switch to the source tape, and I can switch back to the timeline. It really lets me switch. But of course, if I'm in the source tape and I start moving here, it just immediately switches back to the timeline. So you can see how really exciting it is. And not only that, when I go back into the source tape, you can see that as I'm moving around, you can see that the bin is actually highlighting the clip. So you can, of course, go back up here and double-click that clip anytime you like. But you can see when I use a source tape, I'm getting that bin highlighting. And if I go to the clip view, maybe you can see it a bit better there. It's really quite powerful. And also in list view. So you get that interaction between the bin and the viewer. And all your media is there. You can play through it. So you can see it's pretty nice. Now, what's interesting about this is that if you have got, and I'm going to pause for a moment here and just maybe talk about this. If you've got content, because I want to show you how you can resort the stuff, but if you have content it's come from someone, you didn't shoot it, which is really common, particularly in TV commercials and things like that, you've got to check out your media. Well, the great thing about the source tape is you can just scroll through and have a really quick look at exactly what you've got. And there's an hour of media there, and I know exactly what I have now just by scrolling up and down. But we've also got this button here. Now, what this does is it does a fast playback. It's quite clever, actually. It does a fast play. It's basically a fast review. It plays back all your media, but depending how long the clip is, it'll play it back quickly, but not so quickly that you can't see what's going on. But if you've got short clips, it'll slow down the playback so that those clips don't go through so quickly. So it's like almost a dynamic fast playback, and it even works in the timeline. It gives you the ability to kind of just review your footage. So if you get a bunch of media in, you could scroll through it, but you could just play the fast review and just have a quick look, and it'll play it through quickly. Particularly if you've got a lot of varying lengths. You might have a couple of shots that are a couple of minutes long. You might have a whole bunch of other shots that are 5 seconds or 10 seconds long, really depending on what's been shot. That fast review will dynamically change the playback speed. So let's, so I've shown you the bin scrolling. So let's actually see how you can rebuild the source tape, because you can sort the bin and it'll rebuild the source tape. So if you look up the right-hand side here, I've got some different orders. I can do timecode order, so it's just rebuilt the source tape. I can go camera order, I can go duration order, or I can do the clip file name order. And now what it's done is it's rebuilt the entire source tape. So if you've got a bunch of content like this is, these shots are all the same time codes, but side by side, or you can use the file names. You can rearrange it depending how you want to find shots. If you've shot stuff in a linear order with a single camera, like that engine rebuild show I was talking about, you know, everything's in timecode order, so you can just scroll along the source tape, grabbing in and out points and just adding stuff that you need. But if it was multi-camera, then you might want to work in this area here, and then do that, you know, go in from there. So let's see how fast that is. All I'll do is I'll delete the clips I've got on the timeline again, and let's create something. So let's go. Well, we'll put a well, we'll do an in and out point. Let's lay a clip down there, and we'll do an append to end. And I'll use my source tape now. Let's just use the source. I should use the source tape from the front. So maybe we like this. Let's grab something from there. Append to end. Let's say we like this bit. Now these are all different camera views, so it's not really the right kind of footage for this kind of demo, but there's a bit of content. So you can see I can just build up. I can just scroll along all my media, pick whatever shots I want, and drop them down into the timeline. And if this was something like, say, for example, if this was a single camera cooking show, I could just roll down here and just append all the various bits. But this is multi-camera, so no one camera really follows all the action because you've got different views, so the cameras tend to stay their shots. So this is not quite the way you'd use this feature, but you can see I've got a whole bunch of stuff built, and you can see how powerful it is, just being able to scroll down your entire bin with the media, mark in and out, drop it in, drop it in, drop it in, and it's done. So it becomes very fast to build edits very, very quickly. And this is what this page is all about. Now there's a whole bunch of other, there'll be a bunch of other videos online, on our website and everything that'll show you in more detail how this all works. But I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview on how this feature works. You can start to see really the benefits of the source tape. Now the other thing that worth mentioning before I go on to the next topic is, again, we wanted you to be able to work completely inside this page, which means you can also deliver and upload media from the cut page. If you look over here, we've got a button, and this brings up a box, and I can choose different services. Now you can log in, like on the YouTube and Vimeo, you can even put the account details and it'll upload it directly. Or I can pick other formats and it'll generate, I can export and bring up, you know, the saved dialog and just basically render out from here. Now that menu is available on all the pages, so you can do it from any of the pages, but it's particularly nice in here because this page is the page you'd probably be using on a smaller monitor on a laptop if you're out editing on set. So that's that. So that's the fundamentals of how it works, and there's going to be some other videos that show you a bit more detail about how some of these things work, but I wanted to give you a more overview of kind of why we've done some of these things and the major functionality. But there is another editing culture that I alluded to before, almost a third editing culture. And that culture is actually linear editing. You know, in the days of linear editing, we actually had some advantages like the source tape, like, you know, like having all your content on tape. And I think there was some other benefits as well. And one of the biggest benefits, well, one of the limitations we've been dealing with for a long time now is that we're using a mouse to edit with. And a mouse is like having one hand tied behind your back. You know, you do have some limitations in what you can do. So we felt that like one of the advantages of linear editing is you could actually use two hands for editing. And you can do some keyboard shortcuts and everything, but we felt we could do something better. And so we wanted to bring back one of the old benefits of linear editing, which is a keyboard. So we've actually also designed a keyboard, and it's called the DaVinci Resolve Editor Keyboard. And I'll show you because I have one here. There it is here. Now, what's really nice about this is it brings back that two-handed editing mode, and this is an all-metal design. There's nothing cheap about this at all. In fact, whenever we had a decision to make about what we would do when we designed this, we always went for not the most expensive option, but definitely not the cheap option. For example, on the search dial here, we're using two bearings. You know, even prams and a lot of consumer products don't have bearings; they just have bronze bushes. And we've actually used proper roller bearings, you know, to make sure that everything about this is as nice a quality as we can. There's nothing cheap about it at all. Even the buttons are a tiered sort of designed in sort of the profile. We've used the buttons from esports keyboards, where people actually use competitive keyboards for competitions. We've just chosen the most premium materials and buttons and everything we possibly can, because this is essentially we felt like people asked us to build a keyboard, and we thought let's build the keyboard that you can't buy. So yeah, there'll be some variations of the keyboard, but we thought let's build the one you literally can't buy. It's got all the features you need. If you're working for 12 hours a day, you want a keyboard that's going to be able to keep up with you. It's repairable. A lot of the spare parts, the buttons, other areas like that, components like that will be available as spare parts. So you can repair it and keep it going. If you're using it for a lot of hours, I don't know about you, but when I'm editing, sorry, not editing, but just typing emails and things, I tend to wear out keyboards really quickly. Particularly the buttons become so smooth and sort of feel sticky. So we'll have keycap sets, the whole lot. It's USB-C, so it's quite modern. It's a modern design. It does work with USB 3.1, but it's designed to be USB-C. And it lets you use two hands for editing. So this is a much faster process. So let me plug it in and I'll show you how it works. So I'll move the keyboard across here. I think the great thing about a keyboard like this is that it gives you, you know, all the keyboards you have available now are really consumer-grade keyboards. They're designed, obviously, to be fairly low cost because people want computers to be cheap. But we felt like, well, what happens if we just didn't focus on low cost and we really could go and do something just that did exactly what we needed it to do? You can see now that I've got the keyboard here, I can use the right-hand side for all the transport control. And this gives me basically control over where I am in the keyboard, the source tape control, and the left hand will be able to do all the edit functions. So if you look at some of the features over here, and I've got an overhead camera that you can look at, and I'll point them out. You can see I've got a nice search dial here. I've got the types of the search modes, and I've got my source tape and timeline buttons over there. So let's have a look at, so I've got shuttle. So I can shuttle up and down, and this works a bit like a broadcast deck. Now what's really nice about this is we've got an electronic clutch in here. It's a bit hard to hear, I guess, but I can move up to end, and it actually end stops with the clutch. So as I'm shuttling up and down the timeline, I can do, you know, searching basically the same as a broadcast deck. Now the jog control is really nice for finding exactly the frames. And what's really good about this knob too is that we've put, because we've got those two roller bearings in there, you can really spin that knob. And if you look when I'm going down the timeline, the knob actually spins and you can actually move a fair distance. So it kind of gives you a real analog feel when you want to move down the timeline really super quick. And there's a bit of mass in it. It's all machined out of aluminium or aluminum. So you can spin down the timeline quite quickly. But then when you just find an exact framing point, you can really precisely move backwards and forwards to where you want to, a piece of lettuce is dropping out of a bowl. But you can move to the exact point you want. That's where the jog control is powerful. Now the third function is, you know, on a broadcast deck, that's the Verispeed button, which you don't need. We're not replaying old broadcast decks for sports. So what we've done instead, we've called it scroll. And with scroll, you can actually move up and down the timeline really quickly. In fact, if you want to go down, you know, a 90-minute feature film timeline, you just spin it a few times and you're right down the end, or spin it a few times, you're right at the front. So you can just rotate. It's like a super fast version of jog in many ways, but it does let you search up and down and find things really quickly. So the scroll feature is actually really quite nice. Now the source tape and timeline buttons are above here. So you can see I can go to source tape. That's the source tape, there's a timeline. I can switch between them, and it's super fast. So I'm able to go to the source tape, and well, I'm going to show you that feature in a minute. I just triggered a feature that I haven't shown you yet. So if we go up and down the source tape, so we'll do jog. So we can go, because this is actually an hour long worth of content, all the clips together are based on an hour long. This is where the scroll feature becomes super important, because I can roll up and down and I can pick in and out points, which I'm doing on the QWERTY keyboard, part of the keyboard here. And I can really look for clips and just go, I want that bit there. That's pretty nice. You know, scroll becomes really useful to scroll up and down your timeline, up and down the source tape. So that's the functions there. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it uses the source tape. If I go back to the source tape uses the bin order for how it constructs the source tape. It's not a very good way of grammatically saying that. So what that means is I need a fast way of reordering the bin. And so I have the menu up in there, but you really don't want to have to use the mouse too much. The mouse is still there, but it'd be nice if you could switch that around. So along the top here, if you look at the buttons over the top here, we have timecode order and camera order, and you can see there's file name order all across the top here. So when you go into the source tape, you can really quickly just reorder it, and it reorders the bin for you. And that, because they're interacted and they're connected together, it's a very fast way of changing. So you might be, for example, if you've done a shoot like this, where it's different camera views, you might want to go along and look for the, you're looking for the time for the wide shot, which there's there. So, okay, that's what I want to get. I want to jog and find my spot. I'm going to put my in-out point. I'm going to move down a little bit, find my end point. I want to edit that in. Now what I want to do is I want to move to a different camera and I want to get some cutaways from there. So maybe I want to do some cutaways from here. I want to look for some interesting stuff. So now really what I want to do is I might want to use it in timecode order or change around depending on what I'm doing. It depends if I'm finding a shot. Now this is a pretty easy edit. We've got one clip per camera view. But if you're doing this for real, you're going to have a mess of different stops and starts for each camera view. That's when this sort ordering stats gets really, really powerful. Now, one of the things that I almost showed you a second ago, that I hadn't got to yet, what happens if you're working on, you could have thousands of clips in here, and this is when it gets really powerful. At the moment, I've only got 8 clips or whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or so. What happens if you had 1,000 clips? Well, you might want to zoom into a section when you're working on part of an edit. So what you can do is you can actually restrict the source tape to a certain area. So let's have a look at that. So you can zoom into the source tape in some ways. So if I go along, I'm in source tape, and I'll move along here, and I'll put an in point in, and I'll move down a little bit, and I put an out point there, and I want to just deal with this sort of section. If I push source tape again, now it's showing me that section. Now it rebuilds the source tape with the section in between the in and out points. And if I want to back out, I just have to hit escape, and it'll go back in. But if I want to go back into the source tape, I push source tape a second time, and I can still switch between the timeline and that restricted part of the source tape. I can scroll around and look for shots I want, and if at any point I want to go back to the full source tape, I just go back and hit escape, and there's a nice big escape key on the left-hand side for that, and I'm back now to the full source tape. So it's a really good way of going in. So I've got an hour of footage here, but you could have thousands of shots. You could have 5 hours of content. That can be a little unwieldy, even with the scroll feature. So that's where you can get in a little bit and then work that part of the edit back out, find a new spot, go in there and work that. Now I haven't talked much about the left-hand features, but the left-hand side handles all the editing features. So as you notice on the side here, we've got these really big in and out point buttons. You can find them easily. There's a gap just above them, so you can get your hand on there and you can work around here. So I can put an in and out point using those, and it's super nice. You know, you can just really find exactly. I mean, I'm working around, my right hand's finding the shots I want, or the shot I want. The left hand is putting in and out points. And then if I reach up, above that section is all those transitions. So, sorry, all the edit modes. So the edit modes in the UI here match the edit modes here, and they're intelligent. This is kind of important because on the keyboard, you tend to want to work faster. And I think this is really a third culture. Like I was saying, it feels like another edit page. It's like the third edit page, but it's a mechanical keyboard instead. You want to go even faster. So these features being a bit smart is kind of really important because I can just find, shots I want in, out, and just add it to the, it becomes very fast. And that's the point. That's what you want to do. So you can really see how fast I can use these high-speed append to end type demonstrations. Here it is here. I want that, append to end. Let's go down the end here. Let's have here. I'll get a shot here. I'll get another shot there, append to end. I'm really moving. And if you've got a bunch of content where you've shot it in linear order, just scrolling up and down all those shots, just grabbing whatever you want, assembling a timeline, you could have an edit finished in a couple of minutes, and it could be a 15-minute show. You can see really how powerful having 2 hands working. It's amazing. Okay, so let's see how that works when we're doing multicam. So what I'll do is I'll go down and I'll get rid of all my shots. Because what I want to do is, and we'll get that, where was that shot? That was the shot that we had before, where we had, that's the base layer, because we're going to do basically the multicam. We'll get our wide shot here and add it into the timeline. So this is our base layer. And so you can see that that's the wide shot. So we'll cut against that. So what we need to do is we need to find some the other clips and add some cutaways. And so we can use the source override feature to do that. So let's find a shot. Well, actually, of course, we'll use our source tape. So maybe we should find some cutaways here. So let's go back to the timeline and work out where we'd like to put our cutaways. Well, I think where the bit where she's chopping some content, whatever that is. What is that? That's some kind of peppers. So maybe we'll choose that bit there. So let's cut away where she starts to cut. So if I go to the source tape now and look for through there, well, what we want to do is we want to find that shot. So if I hit the F key, oops, sorry, there it is there. Now what that's done is that's matched the shot that I'm looking at to the position that we're sitting on in the timeline. So it's basically matched the frame. So what I can do now is I can put a nice big in point in there. I'll jog down a bit because I'll just get a small section. There's actually over an hour of content in there. So the jog control doesn't do much, so scroll's better. But now that I'm actually just wanting to get a small cutaway, I need to use the jog knob. I can see I've got a 6-second shot there, and I do source overwrite, and there it is. So now if I go back, I'll go to the timeline and scroll back, you can see I've got that dropped in there. Now when you realize how fast you can work, if I go back to the, I'll go to say that, well, I'll go down there a bit. And if I go back to the source tape, I can now scroll along here and find any time I want to do any sort of interesting cutaway, anything that I find interesting like that there, I can just basically mark in, mark out, and do a source override. And it's going to keep dropping shots into the timeline. I can, wherever I want to put a shot, I can just go and find that spot and then go back to the source tape. Well, I can match the frame. I'll put an in point in there, put an out point in, source override. So I can basically go along to these other camera views and just find shots that look interesting. You know, you've got the base shot, which means you've got everything. So what I'm really looking now is just anything on the cutting board that looks interesting. I just have to find it, mark an out point on it, and just do a source override, and it'll just drop them down. Then you can go to another camera view and do the same thing there. So you're really able to search through using the source tape. You can search along, and now I could look for shots here. Maybe that bit where she's stirring, I can now do an in point on that, and an out point, and then do a source override, and that'll drop that cutaway. And so now if I go back to the timeline, I've got different cutaways from different source shots. And you can pretty much, it's a nice way to work because you just scroll up and down various shots. I mean, when I'm on the source tape, I've got everything. So I can just look around for a shot, drop some cutaways in, and it'll take care of it all for you. So it's a very powerful, very fast way of working. Now, the other thing we can also do is trim. We can trim using the search dial. Now, this is quite interesting because and what I'll do is I'll put a couple of shots on to show you what I mean here. Let's put an in point. I'll append a few shots. I can show you a few edits. In fact, we'll go down the end here, and I'll show you on this edit point because I need to show you a edit point. So I've got a transition here, and I can show you how this works. Now, what's interesting about this is this big knob is really nice to use. So we thought it'd be great if we could use it for trimming. In some ways, we take control of it. We actually stop it from being a transport control, and we now use it as a trimming adjustment. Now, there's a bit of controversy around this internally. We've been debating what we should call these buttons. There's 6 buttons down the bottom here, and they're all called roll something or other. Now, roll in is basically the same as trim in, and the roll source is kind of the same as slip. So the big question is, because they override the search dial, we've called them roll, so it sort of signifies that they're almost a keyboard modifier. But the question we've had internally is, should we call them keyboard modifiers? Like, should we call them roll buttons because they're keyboard modifiers, or should we call them the actual functions they are in the edit software? So it'll be interesting to talk, when we have conversations at the show, what people's thoughts are. Should we label them based on what the features they are actually trimming, or because they're keyboard modifiers, we call them, you know, describe the way they are at the moment because they're keyboard modifiers. But anyway, I'll quit talking about that and I'll get into it. Let me show you how it works. So I've got an edit here. I'm close enough to the edit. In fact, I've got to jog so I can get near it without shooting off. There it is there. Now I don't have to be directly on the edit. It knows, it's smart enough to know that I'm close to the edit. So if I push roll in, what you can see it doing is now I'm actually, I can see I'm adjusting the in point of the destination clip. If I push roll out, what it's now doing is it's adjusting the out point of the source clip. And I'm using the nice big jog knob here to do that. And you can see there's audio appearing and I can see what I'm cutting against. If I roll the transition, you can see it moves the transition up and down. So this is really a very fast and nice way to trim. If I roll, now if I want to slip, if I use roll source, it's now rolling the source clip inside the space. So it's not changing the overall timeline duration. Same thing as if I go roll destination, it's rolling destination clip. And remember how before I talked about the transition switching? Well, I can, if I put a transition in here, I'll do it on the on here for a moment. I can also go roll duration. It'll change the duration of the transition. So you can see there. I'll switch that off. So you can see really how powerful it is. It's extremely fast. So of course, switching the transitions, I just did it on the buttons on the UI, but I actually have those buttons down the bottom here as well, below the rolls. So I can switch transitions from here. So if I'm going along here, I can turn on a dissolve, or I can turn it off, and I can move up and down the timeline going, well, okay, let's put a transition in there, and then let's adjust its length. You can do all that. So you can see how those two left and right hands are really interacting with each other. It's extremely powerful. Not only that, one of the things we realized, what happens if you wanted to trim the entire timeline? Like maybe you're doing a 30-second commercial, and it's coming out to about 35 seconds, and you're like, want to get 5 seconds out of it. What you really want to do is run up and down the timeline and get rid of some of those excess, the excess 5 seconds. So what we've done is we've designed a way of, you can push the trim editor button here, and now what it'll do is it'll scroll up and down only the edit points. And then I can now roll the edits, and I can move to the next transition, and I can just basically scroll up and down the edit points and just trim them all. And I'm sure if you're scrolling up and down the edit points, you're going to be able to find 5 seconds worth of trimming, and it just stays in trim mode, and you can just roll up and down all the different edit points and just trim them all. So it's an extremely fast way of editing. Now we also have a revised QWERTY keyboard in the middle. There's a few interesting features in here. We obviously have a full screen view, which is really quite nice when you're, you can sort of, there's so much power on the keyboard, you can do a lot of editing actually in full screen where you don't really need to actually see the UI. So that's kind of nice. So this keyboard will be available in August. It'll be $995. Now there'll be multiple models. This is just the first model we're introducing. There will be some variations, like I'd like a left-handed version because I'm left-handed. But as I mentioned before, it's repairable. There's spare parts. There's new rubber bumpers available. There'll be keycap sets available. There'll be, this sort of stuff that wears out, switches, things like that. It's been designed to be used for 12 hours a day or more. And one thing that's worth noting, there's a lip around the outside, so you can actually cut a hole in the desk and insert it in the desk as well. So it's been designed for building those dedicated workstation type situations. It works, and it looks beautiful next to an iMac Pro. In many ways, it's designed to make this a wonderful editing combination. But also, it's worth mentioning, this is not all that DaVinci Resolve 16 has. I just wanted to talk about this because I felt like people needed a background update on really what's going on here with this part of the new DaVinci. But there is a lot of other stuff in DaVinci Resolve 16. There's multiple performance improvements, specifically to do with Fusion. Fusion's got much faster processing now. I mean, things that used to take, Fusion effects that used to take maybe render about 2 or 3 frames a second now will be real time. It's really, there's quite an improvement in Fusion and even more to come. Now we can do different resolutions and frame rates and scaling and monitor settings and stuff in the same project now and different frame rates in the same timeline. So that's been asked for by a lot of people. That quick export feature I talked about, it's in all the pages. So that's really powerful just to be able to do that. A lot of times you just want to do that. You don't want to have to set up things. When the deliver page is great because you can do various deliverables for different people on large feature films and TV episodic production, that's really important. But for most of the time, you just want to get something out. So like I always just render what the timeline resolution is because I set that up to be what I wanted. I just want to get it out as a file. So that you can do that directly from the page now. And as I mentioned before, you can also upload directly to YouTube and Vimeo. If you put your account settings in, it'll upload directly for you. We've also got a new thing called adjustment clips. Now these apply to filters and effects and grades. And what they are is they go on top of the clip in the timeline and they actually modify the clip underneath. So they're not like, it's not like you're not changing the clip, you're changing, it's almost like a a clip that varies the clip underneath. So it's kind of a nice way of changing something without kind of putting that embedding it in the clip. You've also got the ability to view and edit keyframes and open effects plugins now in the timeline on the edit page. So in the edit page, you can do all that, the keyframes and animation in there. There's also a lot of improvements to the scopes. The scopes have been basically rewritten, and they've got some nice improvements. There's some new types of scopes, and they're also all GPU accelerated now, so they're really fast. And they don't load up the computer at all. They're really, really quick. There's a lot of changes to collaboration. This DaVinci Resolve 16 has some big improvements in collaboration. There's also a nice new speed warp motion estimation capability, and it's powered by the DaVinci Neural Engine, so there's an AI component to how that's all processed, which is a new engine that's built into DaVinci now. There's a frame.io integration as well, so we support media imports and direct uploads and markers and comments in the studio version of DaVinci Resolve. Some of these features are for the studio version of DaVinci Resolve. There's more detail on our website, of course. We also have improved the immersive 3D audio support in the Fairlight part of DaVinci specifically. So we support Dolby and Auro 3D and SMPTE 2098, and it's in the studio version. So we have that now. There's also some some new effects, and so we've got a Fairlight FX Foley sampler and limiter and frequency analyzers and phase meters and things like that. So there's a lot of improvements there, and that's in the studio version. And also there's support for the Fairlight audio accelerator card in a Thunderbolt expander for Mac, so you can now access on Macs. So that's the details of all those extra power features are on our website, so it's worth checking that out. So the big question, of course, is that we think that this cut page in some ways is almost only half finished. There's a lot of little finessing issues that we need to work on, but we think we've got some nice new directions. We wouldn't normally show this, but we think that we're just not going to be able to take it much further without assistance from editors. We need to just get out there and have lots of conversations now and really help you guys work out kind of some of the, there's a lot of, I guess as we move along and we're adding these features, you end up spending so much time debating exactly how to finish some of these features that it's just easy to get out there and talk to people about it and really get a dose of reality, because you don't want to get too far off the reservation and end up implementing something not quite right at the end. So we want a bunch of discussions with people to get us really sharpened up on how these new features could go. I don't think we'd probably normally show the cut page, but I think we just need assistance and we need everyone to help us get it sorted out. Now we'll have, there will be a public beta. We'll actually include this when the public beta is available. It'll include the cut page. And I reckon the more comments we get, the better. I think we've got a lot of good directions in here. I think it's quite innovative, but we're really, we want to get all that feedback and have some great conversations. Also, it's worth mentioning, we've been moving very fast now, and you can see that DaVinci is getting more and more features every year. Now, if you've purchased a studio version or one of our control panels or a Pocket Camera 4K or even an Ursa Mini, then you've helped us build that engineering team bigger, and we've been getting more revenue and getting a larger engineering team all the time. And that's why I think this version has got so much more in it, particularly the studio version. I mean, it's the studio customers that are helping pay for DaVinci, but I love the fact that the free version is still very powerful. The cut page is in the free version. That gives you the ability to get going. And if you can make money, hopefully, then you'll buy some stuff from us, or the studio version, and we'll make some money, and that's paying for that engineering team. So the paid customers will get, all the paid studio customers will get those studio features for free. It's a free upgrade for them. The cut page and a whole bunch of stuff is included in the free version as well. But we do appreciate the support. You can see the benefits. You can see how we've been able to have a bigger team and do a lot more. So we really hope that you enjoy some of these new features, and we really hope to have some great conversations at the show. So thanks. See you there. The last thing I'd like to show is a nice little product we've been working on for the Pocket Camera. It's got it down here. Let me grab it. So what we have is the Pocket Camera. I'll move down here if you don't mind. Sorry to move around on you too quickly. So the Pocket Camera has been doing really well, and it's been great. But what's interesting about the Pocket Camera is we have this capability on the side where you can plug in a flash drive, a bit like the HyperDeck does, and it's been very popular. People are plugging all sorts of disks and flash drives on the side. The problem is, of course, is that we power those flash drives from the internal battery in the camera. So that's been driving the battery a bit harder than we'd like, and it's a great capability. I mean, you can record straight to the flash disk and then use that flash disk on your editing later. So it's nice not to have to juggle cards, but the thing is, it is actually draining the battery quicker. So what we wanted to do is create a battery solution for the camera. So we have the Blackmagic Pocket Battery Grip. Here it is here. And what it does is it basically adds two nice big batteries on a shelf. You can see the big batteries there on the side shelf, and they slide in. And then you can add this to the camera. So all you have to do is go to the battery clip, and then the battery door actually comes off. I'm not sure if most people know that. And then the battery adapter just slides up inside. And then you can wind it onto the camera. Oops, wrong way. There it is there. And now what they do is they basically bolt together, and now they become a single-fired unit. And this can go for a couple of hours now with power. And of course, it means you can really power those external discs really, really nicely. So it's a very nice solution to give you long-term battery, and it integrates nicely into the camera as well. So it's a nice peripheral. It'll give us quite a lot more battery life when you're running all these external peripherals, things like, you know, phantom-powered microphones. It's a great camera. It's professional, and people have been super happy with the performance they're getting. We've added Blackmagic RAW to it recently and a whole bunch of other features. But you know, when you're trying to power up some big external discs, it gives you a lot more power to be able to do that. So this battery grip will be available about August, and it'll be $245, so it's not too expensive. It's really low cost, and that'll be a good addition for people using the pocket camera. That's all we really have. So I think we've got a really nice range of 8K products. We've got really those nice changes in DaVinci. I think it's a really exciting time, and again, you know, it's the conversations we have with you guys that really help us do these things, and so we're always really appreciative of that. So thank you very much for watching the video, and hopefully I've done a bit more of a brain dump in this case and shown you a bit more detail than we normally do, to really give you a chance to see really a lot of the features that are in all these products. They're really quite sophisticated, and I think I wanted to get a chance to really show that to you. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you at the show. All right, take care. Bye.